knew that they hadn't beaten the Rebels in a couple games, you know, losing up here earlier in the year and losing down there last year. But it was an important game because it had to put the Raiders back on track. They were trying to establish some, you know, that formula again that says, you know, we can dominate this part of the game or that part of the game. And I think they did that. I think they came out and they said, we can run the football. We know they can throw. LeBurge is, you know, one of the best passers in the BCFC. But they put the ball on the ground, and Williams had himself a great game. The first guy this year to run for 100 yards against the Rebels, as he did first guy to go run against the Sun for 100 yards. But yeah, they just sort of put it back into place that let's be the Raiders and let's go play some football. And as well, when the Rebels and Raiders get together, they're not in love with each other, put it that way.
No, there's very little love, I'll tell you that right now. There were some suspensions that came out of that game, although none of the suspensions impact the Raiders on the field. They did lose their team manager, one of their coaching staff members in Glenn Cook, but no players were suspended for the Raiders, so they won't be impacted in that way. The Valley Huskers will be kicking this ball off. They have the green helmets, the green pants, the white jerseys, the Raiders, in the all black with the red trim, as you've come to expect here at Caledonia Park in Nanaimo. It's the first full day of fall. It is an absolutely gorgeous day here in Nanaimo. Perfect temperature and weather for some fall football as Week 8 in the BCFC is underway. Danny Harris kicking the ball from left to right on your computer screens, and the Raiders will bring this back up. It's Xander Bailey, gets over the 35-yard line. We will not see Jake LeBerge today. He is on the inactive list for the Vancouver Island Raiders, the league's leader in passing yardage. It instead will be 22-year-old Jamie Ybarra getting the start, and the Raiders have a lot of luxury there, Paul, in having a veteran like him to come off the bench.
Oh, absolutely. He's a former CJFL Rookie of the Year, and you get, you know, put a little bit of schooling behind you when he's at Manitoba to come back to junior football. He's being a mentor for LeBurge for sure in that.
Raiders, as Paul alluded to, really able to move the ball on the ground. 160 yards rushing as a team last week against the Rebels. Rhett Williams, a big factor in that, and that was really good to see because I know Doug Hawking, as a first pass of the game, falls incomplete. Doug Hawking really wanted to see Rhett Williams emerge as his starting tailback. He'd wanted that since week 1. It hadn't been there. Bit of an injury issue for Williams as well, but the second-year man at Weyburn, Saskatchewan, looks as though he's taking the reins of being that feature back here for the Raiders.
Well, I think he's got his feet wet now. He's, you know, a couple 100-yard games, and I think he understands exactly how to read some offensive line blocking now, and hopefully he's able to continue that as the teams approach playoff time. Williams
is second in the league as this pass is completed, and it'll be good for about 20 yards into Husker territory as it's put on the money for Evan Rode from Ybarra. Williams second in the league in rushing yards, 468 on 71 carries. He's trailing only Trey Campbell, who has 3 more carries and about 20 more yards. But you know it, Paul, and it sounds so cliche, but it is so true. You have to run the ball at this time of year, and you have to do it to beat the Prairies.
Absolutely. That's what the Prairies build their teams around, is running the football. And it not necessarily, they might be 50-50 pass run or, you know, a 60-40 pass run ratio. But when the crunch is out there, you got to run the football. You need that 2nd and 2, that 2nd and 3, and they are very good at that. Xander
Bailey moves the ball on the right side, although there is a flag down here on 1st and 10. They're just inside the Husker 50-yard line after hitting that big second down play to Evan Rode. It is a hold, and that's going to bring this play back. The head referee today, Mr. Chris Short, will be leading this group. I was actually chatting with one of the veteran referees down there before the game, and you know, he said, we're here for the love of the game. We don't do it for the money, and I don't need to leave my house to get cursed at, he said. But he said, you know, making the trip over from Richmond to be here today, and we certainly appreciate all the referees that ref the junior game. Wouldn't be able to play without them. Ybarra, 1st and 20, hoists it up, and it's incomplete off the fingertips of Bryson Mayo. And he was on some record-type pace for overall yardage, was Bryson Mayo. Seems as though he's come down a little bit, and do you think maybe, Paul, that's because teams know where number 4 is all the time now?
Absolutely. I think that whenever he's on the field, he's a threat, and especially in the kicking game, if he's going to be returning kicks. If I'm coaching, I'm not kicking to him.
Yeah.
I'd rather kick it out of bounds.
Bryson Mayo has 515 yards receiving. That puts him 3rd in the conference in that, but he's also put up a ton of yardage returning the ball. Missed field goal return, has 178 yards as Ybarra throws on 2nd and long, and he's picked off. Intercepted Ybarra into the hands of Alex Zamora, and the Huskers turn the ball over on the first drive of the game for the Raiders.
Yeah, I think he had his receiver open. He just put the ball a little bit too low, and that was number 10, I believe.
Alex Zamora intercepting that.
Yeah, and he was in the passing lane and get his hands on the football.
So the Raiders turn the ball over. Not something they do a ton of, only their 7th interception as a team on the season. And the Valley Huskers, while they do a lot of that, turning the ball over, this team and their defense especially has been the part of this team that has really shone through this year.
Well, I think sometimes too you're in a game and you know you're up against a team that hasn't won yet, so mentally you're not as focused as you would be playing a team that you're really battling with, and sometimes you give up some easy plays or you're not putting it 100%. And
Falconer throws it up on first down, incomplete, looking for Marias Angle, but there is a flag down in the secondary, and I think this is going to go against the Vancouver Island Raiders.
Yeah, it certainly looked like pass interference. I think he just got his arm. Just change him a little bit in the back of on the jersey when he got a hold of it.
So how about this start for the Huskers, Paul? You get an interception. You come out on your first play, and you're going to move 15 yards ahead on the pass interference call as well. And they are cooking at the Raider 31-yard line about 3 minutes into this first quarter here.
Well, everybody talks about the Huskers. You know, they're 0-7, and they haven't won a football game since, I think it was
2014.
2014.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
But, they're trying. They never give up. They're working hard. And it's all about just let's do things, and let's do a couple things really good.
Raiders,
and the next time you come out, do them again.
Blitz on first down, and it is a short gain on the ground for the Husker offense as they hand that off to Keegan Vickland. Vickland, a rookie out of Abbotsford.
He's got a little running back. I watched the game when they played West Shore, and he ran the ball quite well for a young guy. But yeah, it's Huskers will be looking for some little things to do. Let's get first downs, and the next series, let's go and do something. Get another first down. This time on the ground. But they want to win. They want to get that monkey off their backs.
Who doesn't? 2nd and 6, and it looks like the Huskers are going to call a timeout here as they don't have the personnel package they want in there for a 2nd and 6. And, I don't mind that timeout in this scenario, Paul, because you think, it's the first quarter. Why are you burning your timeouts within the first 4 minutes? But this is a critical point in the game, and imagine what this would mean to the Huskers to score first and get a lead.
Oh, absolutely. And, yeah, timeouts are there to fix those type of things.
Right.
And you get 3 per half. Is it 3 per half?
I think it's 3, yeah.
3. So, yeah, you got a couple that you can use. But, yeah, you want to do it right. Get on the field, get the right personnel out there for the play that's called.
I mean, it sounds almost weird to say an 0-7 team on a 2nd down in the first 3 minutes of the game, but this is the big down right here on the Raider 29-yard line. Huskers need 6. Falconer throwing it high to the right side. He's got R.J. Begg into his hands, complete to the 5, still on his feet as the Raiders can't put him down. And R.J. Begg has a first down inside the Raider 10-yard line. And the Huskers will have a chance to score.
It was an interesting little play. It looked like Falconer was just lofting it up for grabs. And Begg just saw the ball as he's running backwards and was able to get his hands on it.
5th year out of Langley. R.J. Begg has over 208 yards receiving on the season.
That's a good start for the Huskers here.
They have a chance to score the first points of the day. 1st and goal from the 5. 4 minutes into the first quarter. Raiders show blitz. They come with it. Pass over the middle, incomplete. And a flag comes in, and I think, I was going to say, looked like maybe Denoyer's arm was pulled a little bit.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure if Dexter Shea got his hands on that, but it was one of those quick little passes, and the defender got in the way and just put his hands on him. Put the ball on the 1-yard line. 2nd
pass interference call on this drive against the Raider defense. It'll, I guess, move it halfway closer to the goal line, or right on the goal line.
Yeah, puts it on the 1, yes.
So the Huskers with a 1st and goal from even closer than last. Falconer goes up under center. Vickland is the deep back. He's got a fullback in front of him. That's Mason Palak. Balance set. Like a bit of a false start there, but the play goes off, and it's a touchdown And the Huskers strike first as their bench erupts. Keegan Vickland plunges it in, and the Valley Huskers have a 6-0 lead. Second touchdown of the year for Vickland.
Yeah, just your typical off-tackle run. Block out, one guy block out, the other guys block off. Roll it up in the center, get a hole, tip into the end zone.
Simple as that. So just less than 5 minutes into the first quarter. The Valley Huskers with an extra point to take a lead, 7-0. There are flags down here.
Yeah, that might have been offside against the Raiders.
So an interception by Alex Zamora. A couple of pass interference penalties, and Keegan Vickland plunges it in.
Well, it's a good start for the Huskers. You know, you come over here, nobody is expecting them to do anything in this game. You know, the season's winding down. You're 0-for. You know, you just keep trying, and it's, I'm sure Doug Hawking is going to be saying a few choice words to his team just to, you know, say, let's wake up here, fellas. And
he will not. You can see him right now. He's turned around, facing his bench, and just imploring his guys to, I'm sure, wake up. And you would not ever want to script a start like that against a winless team, to have your 22-year-old quarterback turn the ball over and it lead to a touchdown, but that is the script we've had here. So the Valley Huskers on the board. This is a team that just does not score a lot of points at all. They've only scored 34 all season long in their 7 games coming in.
that's one of the reasons why they're 0-for.
Yeah, it's a very good reason. They've been shut out by the Raiders as well, who shut them out over in Valley. I think it was week 3 the Raiders went over and won that game as Harris kicks this ball away. Short kick fielded at the 10 by Bryson Mayo. Picks his way towards the near side, gets a couple of blocks, and it will be the kicker Harris who will eventually force him out of bounds near the 50-yard line, and that's the kind of thing that Bryson Mayo does, and that looked really quite effortless.
Yeah, he's got that type of running style that makes it look very effortless. He's a special kid, I'll tell you. You watch some of these players run, and it looks like they're just out for a jog, but they're actually at full speed. And he reminds me of James Green. He used to play for the Okanagan Sun.
Yes.
Just that deceptive speed, very elusive.
Mayo has 510 kickoff return yards, not including the roughly 40 he just put up right there. Averages 28 yards per return. And he leads the league in return yardage this season, as it'll be a handoff on first down, leading to a short gain. Xander Bailey taken down with a fair bit of authority there by James Moore.
Yeah, it's just, again, as I was
saying. That was Travis
Dietrich,
excuse me.
You see some of the guys on the Raiders, they're just, I'm not saying they're going through the motions, but they just don't have that same
intensity.
Fire. The intensity's not there. Their feet aren't moving.
No, you're right.
And if you get excited defensively, it's very easy to, stop a lot of running plays. And when you get the lead that the Huskers have, you're going to be a little more fired up.
Second and call it 7. There's a wide open pass as Ybarra puts that perfectly on the money for Trevor Pellin. And the Raiders will move the sticks deep into Husker territory. That had some fire on that pass from Ybarra.
That had a very nice pass. Just down the seam, in behind the linebackers in front of the DB. Big yardage, big pickup. The key is to stay out of penalty and make sure you hold on to the football.
Turnovers and penalties are certainly a great equalizer, aren't they?
Oh, they certainly are. Unless you got a team that it doesn't matter and you can do anything you want, but one day you run into a team that take advantage of penalties that you commit.
Don't tell Charlie Cardalicchia that. 1st and 10 at the Raider 30. Mayo went down a little awkwardly there and appears to be okay, a little slow to get up. Paul, you were down on the field, as was I before the game. You and I went for a lengthy jog, actually, before the game, as we always do.
That's right.
And, I mean, that grass is quite long down there, isn't it?
And I find it very long. As a matter of fact, I don't know when it was last lined, but it's hard to see the stripes. And
usually they would come, in my experience, the city would make sure the grass got cut at least no more than 2 days before the game, but it doesn't look like that here today.
And long grass, especially after the dewy mornings we're having now, it takes a while to dry out.
Oh, what a catch! That's a fantastic catch there by Alex Bonnetplume as he snatches that ball out of midair. And Now they're waving this off here.
I thought that was a good catch.
I didn't see any way that was not a catch, but they will wave that off and call it incomplete.
It was like the catch last night. I think it was in the Lions game when Banks caught one on the sideline, and they said that it was incomplete. Right. His hand was underneath. It looked like it was underneath the ball anyway.
It looked like a good catch to me, but instead of a first down, it's going to be a field goal attempt by James Parker, who is 13 of 14 on the season, leads the league with a 93% completion on his field goal attempts. This from 32. Parker gets it off, plenty of leg, and it's right through. And I mean, we don't talk about kickers all that much, Paul, but James Parker is about as sure of a bet as you're going to find at this level.
He is the leading kicker in the BCFC, and that's what you need as you're rolling in the playoff time. You know, points are going to be very scarce because defenses step up their play. I find it so harmful to your team's fortunes when you don't get points that you should. Absolutely. Right? And if you're missing field goals, and the Okanagan Sun will know this, and you know, even from some of their critical playoff losses to the Raiders in the Andrew Harris era, they were a lot driven by missed opportunities like field goals. Oh, absolutely. There's one game that the Sun lost. I think it was against the Raiders in the Cullen Cup a few years back.
In Okanagan. I think it might have been 2010.
Yeah, and Steve was a for sure kicker.
He was about as good as you were going to find.
Absolutely. Had a shot in professional football.
I know he had some back problems at that point in his career, but
no, he was one of the best kickers in the BCFC in BCFC history.
Here's Vicklin with a nice rip on first down as the Huskers start their second drive of the game with a 7-3 lead. We're about halfway through the first quarter here in Nanaimo. Yeah, Paul, it's funny. I think that was the 2010 Cullen Cup, maybe. It might have been 2011, and it was in Kelowna, and Schott missed a game-winning field goal. Yes. It would have been a game winner and missed it wide, and the Raiders won that game. I remember that very vividly, and everyone was so shocked because he was just so automatic. And it's also important because the winner of the BCFC travels to the prairies, and you've got to be able to kick the football. You know, you've got to change field position. You've got to make the points, as you say. When you have an opportunity to score points, you've got to make points. But it's really, really important. There's Vicklin getting chopped out in the hole. That was a good play there, and that was one that the Raiders needed after that big pickup on first down. Mason Kelly for no gain there. I believe it was Mason Kelly with the penetration, and that'll shut down this Husker drive right there. You are watching BCFC TV, powered by Remax. Thanks so much for joining us here. Dominic Abassi, Paul Short, on a gorgeous afternoon, a fall afternoon in Nanaimo. Couldn't really be better as far as conditions go. There's no wind. The sun is out. It's not too hot, which it has been here in Nanaimo for a couple of games this year. Very, very hot here. He's waiting to take the penalty here for too long in the huddle rather than take another timeout. Yeah, the Huskers have already burned one of their timeouts. Yeah, they're just short a man. But, you know, the officials are going to allow you an opportunity to get things fixed. Sometimes teams just overreact. Yeah, in my experience, they will usually sort of allow you to make a personnel switch as long as it's not right at the snap. Yeah. Hey, you can send us a tweet, a message. Let us know where you're watching the broadcast from today, who you're cheering for, your favorite player for either one of these teams, at Dom Abassi. Love to hear from you. Short punt, bounces at the 50. And this is going to be a pretty nice return here as Tristan Muir gets away from traffic, and a flag comes out on a block that's going to negate what was a lot of work for really probably about a 15-yard return, although he ran the entire width of the field, but it doesn't matter because there's a penalty for an illegal block, and the Raiders did not like it. Well, the Huskers did a good job in forcing him to the sideline, but they let him an escape route out the back going to his right. But they call that an illegal block. I thought it was a good block. But according to the official, I guess they're looking at a blind side block. And you can see Doug Hawking well out onto the field here asking for an explanation. The Raiders will be a testy bunch, I would have to think, because of the carryover from last week, Paul. And again, you were there. I haven't seen the film I wasn't there. I didn't watch the broadcast live either. I missed BCFC TV. Shame on me, I know. But this play on the Rebel sideline, a Raider player, allegedly being attacked in some way on the sidelines. It did lead to a pair of suspensions. The Rebels losing Austin Lindobrow for 1 game and Baranu Yitya for 2 games. So obviously in the eyes of the league, there was some sort of infraction there as the Raiders run a receiver screen for good yards on first down to Evan Road. But what did you see from that, Paul, and what were some of your sort of takeaways from that whole fracas last week?
Well, I watched the whole play, and I was able to see the replay of it while I was doing the broadcast. And it's like any time a player on the opposition goes into your bench, they're coming in, they're invading your house.
Sure.
That's basically what's happening. So you're going to jump up, and you're going to, you don't really put hands on them, but you get close enough where you're going to be bumping guys. And to me, that's what it looked like. I know the player was on the ground, and when you get a lot of people moving around and jumping around, it might look like there was some, somebody got kicked or whatever. I can't definitively say that's what happened, but it just, I personally didn't think it was as big as it was. The thing but to be honest with you, what disappointed me was the 2 players that were ejected in that game, the way they came off in trying to incite the fans rather than
sort of celebrating an ejection,
yes,
so to speak.
Yeah, rather than just man up, get in the change room like the rules say, and just live with it. But I also understand that players get excited and they get caught up in the moment, and things like that are going to happen.
Dingwell on a first down carry as he just moved the sticks on the previous play and gets another nice gain, sets up a 2nd and short. Yeah, I talked with Charlie Cardelicchia and, of course, Doug Hawking this week, and obviously they had sort of polar opposite views of the situation, as you would expect. And Charlie said, he was disappointed, didn't want to obviously lose those guys. The Rebels have a big game against the Rams this weekend, and he was mentioning some injury issues that make them a little thin now at receiver this weekend. But, overall he said, look, the league is going to do what they're going to do. We're going to appeal. They're planning on appealing the suspensions, which is their right. And there's a discipline committee for a reason to figure that stuff out. But ultimately, you have to sort of deal with that and move forward. And I said to him, how do you turn this into a positive now? And he had a good answer. He said, basically, we have to take on that us against the world mentality. They're all trying to bring us down because we're playing so well, we're winning so many games. And if that's the storyline that you need for your team to inspire them, so be it. I've been on teams where that is the storyline, and it certainly does galvanize your group.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of teams think that way as well when you have something happen to the entire group. At the end of the day, everything falls on the coach. The coach is the leader. The coach is the guy that sets the tone of the team.
Well, that punt almost muffed, but recovered, and the Huskers will take over at their own 30.
But you also want that edge on your team.
Yeah.
You want a team that are going to stick together. And so these things are going to happen. And then but you also got to step back and look at the entire picture, that the relationship and that has gone on between these 2 teams in the past, that these things are going to happen because the coaches will get the guys ramped up. The players will get themselves ramped up.
Yeah.
But the thing I find kind of interesting about the whole thing is that we keep talking, or the teams keep talking about what happened when the Raiders got a team up here.
Yeah.
That was 14 years ago or whenever it was, 13 years ago. So let's move on from that. None of these kids, some of these kids were, they were babies back then.
Sure, yeah.
So
some of them would have been 5 years old.
Yeah,
right?
But the coaches that were involved at the time have long memories, and they keep bringing this up. And that's what gets some of the kids too riled up, where they're going to do something silly that's going to cost them a game or 2 or whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, for me, and again, I talked to Doug Hawking this week, and he was more fired up, I think, about it than Charlie Cardelicchia was, as we have an injured Raider. Vickland was stopped for a small loss on first down there. By the way, the Huskers leading this football game 7-3 as we're nearing the end of the first quarter here. Doug was saying there's no place for any of that stuff. He, of course, is perhaps playing it in the media, as he will, and that's his right as a head coach, but saying, hey, there's no room for what happened in the game. Absolutely, that, the players should be punished, and if that were one of my players, we would never stand for it. And so perhaps there's an element of grandstanding there as well, but I think you're ultimately right, Paul. There's a fine line between a healthy rivalry and an unhealthy rivalry, and this has always skirted it. But for me, if there wasn't an incident like that, if there wasn't something to talk about, it wouldn't be a Rebels-Raiders game, would it? I mean, that's sort of what we go for.
Well, when you look at it, they call it a rivalry.
Yeah.
It's a rivalry because it's geographically the teams are
Sure.
close and they're on the same.
Well, it doesn't. Hey, it doesn't matter if it's baseball, hockey,
Absolutely.
lacrosse, Victoria and Nanaimo.
Yeah,
They go at it.
Absolutely. But you can't call it a rivalry based on the win-loss record because the Raiders dominated.
Sure.
Mind you, the Rebels have won the last couple years. Have done much better. But
Maybe 3 of the last 4 meetings the Rebels have won. If,
yeah, I think it
math
is
is
time
right,
in there
yeah.
too. But at the end of the day, it's healthy to have that type of play. It's exciting. It draws fans into the stands. It gets fans excited. But you can do so much differently with it, especially with the officials.
Yeah.
The BCFC officials to
Sure.
know that this is what can possibly happen in this game. And we're
Risk
gonna cut that
management,
feud.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically, yeah. And make everybody aware that we're not going to allow it to happen.
Well, that was a high snap on 2nd and 11 that Falconer ultimately could not really corral, so he had to fall on the ball and take a loss. And the Huskers will punt from their own, kind of 10-yard line here as Danny Harris goes well back and the ever-dangerous Bryson Mayo lurking right around the midfield stripe here, as this will be the final minute of the first quarter starting here.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to kick at the Bryce. Oh, looks like they're going to.
They are. It's going to be short
bounds.
and right to Bryson Mayo as it comes back. That's going to pull out a no yards flag. Oh, the referee, he pulls that out, and Mayo is going to cut back through a maze of bodies here. He's still going, and ultimately it's about a 10-yard return. I thought he had that right corner there, Paul.
I thought if he kept going to his right, he would have scored.
Although, to be fair, I think between us we have 0 kick returns in our careers. So
I think I had one.
Okay.
But that
must have been a mistake.
I think my dad kicked it to me when I was a little guy.
They didn't let me return kicks, I'll tell you that. So the Raiders will probably move up here on a no yards penalty. And, I was doing some quick math, and shame on me for not having this all added up, but I was trying to put together the overall yardage this season of Bryson Mayo. So you have 515 yards receiving, 366 yards of punt returns, 510 yards of kickoff returns, and 178 yards of missed field goal returns. 1,500 yards overall that Bryson Mayo has produced for his football team this season. And not to mention that, but he leads the conference with 9 touchdowns as well. I mean, these kind of numbers are just incredible. That's in 7 games.
Yeah. No, he's on a pace to get into that 2,000-yard mark.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the mainstay when you talk about total yards in the league. But he's kind of a bright light, I guess, in my opinion, to this year, because we don't really have a lot of flashy offense going on.
No, you're right.
It's just trudging. We're into game 7, and our leading rushers at
400 yards.
Yeah, 400 yards.
There's Ybarra looking end zone for Pellin. Incomplete. Nice coverage in the back end. Joshua Robinson in there to knock that ball away. Riley Simpson was in the area as
that
well.
Was nice play by Robinson.
Looked like Pellin might have had a little room as the Raiders have completed over that seam as well. Yeah, Paul, I mean, you look at it, rushing. Leader, Trey Campbell, 487 yards, and he would be a lot farther ahead, I think, had he not missed the 3 games with an upper body injury. Leading receiver, Kalik Johnson in Langley, 609 yards. That's a pretty strong season, but again, that's under 100 yards a game. And then you look at even passing. Jake LeBerge leads the league with just over 1,500 yards passing. And that is, not a dynamic number. As Ybarra fumbles the ball on a scramble, and the Huskers have recovered it. Second turnover of the day, and look who it is. Alex Zamora, who had a pick. Now he's got a fumble recovery, and the Raiders turn the ball over deep in Husker territory.
Well, that looked like Jamie. He had the first down, or close to it.
He did, yeah.
And we got a flag
There is
down.
a flag, though.
That'll be declined. I think it was legal procedure against the Raiders. But it looked like he definitely wasn't securing the football when he got hit, but it looked like when he went down, as the ball was coming out, there was no real urgency to scramble to try to get it. But again, you're looking at this type of stuff, and you're saying, we're playing the Huskers.
Yeah.
We should be able to roll on these guys. Okay, now we got it going, but you got to focus. You got to stay focused the entire game, 60 minutes.
That'll be the last play of the first quarter. The Huskers have the lead, 7-3. And the Raiders have turned the ball over twice in this football game. The most recent, a fumble by veteran quarterback Jamie Ibarra, puts the ball on the carpet. Alex Zamora picks that up, so he's got a pick and a fumble recovery. And already scribbling his name into that Defensive Player of the Week talk for sure. I mean, hey, you start racking up points like that.
Absolutely.
And it gets in the conversation. And
especially when you're playing a game against a pretty good football team.
That's right, yeah.
You make some differences, and the people take notice of that.
Yeah, and now, I talked to Doug Hawking this week, and he said, I need to see something from my starters. This isn't a game where I'm going in and saying, yeah, we're going to get everyone rotated in by the second quarter. I need to see something from my starters. We haven't won a football game in 3 weeks. And so far, I don't think he's seen anything he's going to like, as Falconer passes it over the middle, and diving to haul it in is Nathan Denoyer, the leading receiver, the rookie out of Winnipeg for the Huskers. There is a flag down, though, on that first down play.
Yeah, and I agree with Doug. There's a lot of talk about what happened last week in West Shore, but that was a loss.
Yeah.
They
played a great game.
Yeah, they played very, very well, but it's still a loss, and they've got to get themselves back on the track, because that loss dropped them in the 4th place.
Yeah.
And if Kelowna beats the Rebels that last game of the year, you don't want to travel to Kelowna for a playoff game.
No.
Stay on the island, have a day trip. So that it's not a sense of urgency for him, because with the games that the Rams have coming up are much more difficult.
Yeah, and that's a conversation I think you and I can get into probably in the second half. We don't want to use all the material yet, Paul, but you're right. And the schedules are much different, and it's week 10. We will see Raiders, Rams right here at Caledonia Park, and likely that'll be a game that, if it plays out like we think, the Rams will have to win by 8 points to pass the Raiders in the standings. And we'll get into that much later, as Denoyer pulls that in on second down, but he does not have enough to move the sticks. The rookie out of Winnipeg leading the Huskers in receiving this season, up over 20 catches, nearing 300 yards on the season. But that Husker passing offense, Paul, man, have they ever taken a huge step back. And I don't know, the full reasons behind it or the factors at play, but Noah Falconer, their quarterback, 2015 as a rookie, 1,600 yards, 8 touchdowns, great rookie campaign on really a bad team, right? Last year, 2,500 yards passing, 19 touchdowns. Now, he did throw 16 interceptions, but still, 19 touchdowns and 2,500 yards. That's a fantastic season. This year, Paul, 574 yards. He's completing less than 30% of his passes. And, you have to be a little perplexed at how a third-year guy takes a step back like that.
Yeah, I had him at the beginning of the year. I charted a lot of the BCFC historicals records, and he was up there that he could have come out as the top passer this year on the pace he was on.
Right.
He would have taken over from Jordan Yance easily.
For total yards.
Total yards,
wow.
Completions, attempts, touchdowns, the whole bit, just the pace he was on. And sometimes, we don't know what's in the background for some of these kids, as far as, maybe some home life problems, girlfriend problems, school problems. Maybe just he was injured, he's not full speed, that type of thing. Or maybe just the pressure of being the guy. That could, be something where he's not comfortable with. And
Xander Bailey takes that first down carry for about 5. Yeah, Falconer stats, 30% completion percentage. That is worst in the league. 780 yards among the starters. That is near the bottom. 1 touchdown and 11 or so. 1 passing touchdown. We're in week 8. So, again, you don't know what's going on. And I'm not saying it's Noah Falconer's fault. Offensive line, receivers,
absolutely.
They all play a part.
Yes.
But it is perplexing to see a player take such a step back statistically. Raiders run a play-action boot here on 2nd and 9, and there's Ibarra doing the smart thing. After fumbling last drive, he goes down. It's a first down to the Husker 50-yard line.
Yeah, I think, Noah, I think probably is more disappointed in himself, I would think,
Right.
when you compare. Sometimes you try too hard. But then also, one of the hardest things is you talk about a team that is playing a team that hasn't won, that struggles offensively or whatever, and getting the focus. But for a team as well that hasn't won, and you come into a game that you're not going to win, is difficult as well from a mental side to say, yeah, I'm ready to play. And that's why I commend the Huskers this year. What Coach Bob Reese has done is he's kept these kids focused, and they don't quit. They just keep, working, and the outcome is the outcome. Just come away feeling good that you put 100% into it, and that's what he's got going. But it is difficult when you're sitting down trying to get your mind ready for something and going, oh geez, they got these big guys coming off the edge. They got they got really good DBs and that type of thing, and it affects you. You might not throw the ball as hard as you want to, or into where you need to. You might panic a bit more, put a little bit of loft on it or whatever, and bad things happen at that time.
Riley Simpson moving off the field here under his own power. I have a tweet from Paul Eberling watching in from Winnipeg. Hey, Paul, cheering on the Raiders today. And watching BCFC TV, powered by Remax. As the Raiders trail this game 7-3, about 3 minutes into the second quarter. Jamie Ibarra just running for a first down. Fresh set from the Husker 50-yard line. Valley with a balanced set defensively. The Raiders balanced offensively. I formation, handoff, Bailey, big gain, first down, more up to the 30-yard line as the seas parted over the middle there for Xander Bailey. And he has been good. You see Bryson Mayo doing some push-ups there. I think he means he missed his block.
Well, I don't agree with that, but that's what the kids do. And then that was a nice play. Just, good hole up the middle. Danny Harris comes up from his halfback position, makes a tackle, and
Xander
first down.
Bailey nearing 200 yards rushing on the season. He's been sort of the, at times, starting tailback, but change of pace back with Rhett Williams in that Raider backfield. First down here. Ibarra scrambles out to the near side, trying to direct his receivers, and he's just going to throw this one away as he didn't see anything he liked downfield there. Jamie Ibarra, what a story he's been. Came back to the Raiders where his career started. Former Rookie of the Year, as you alluded to before, had been gone for a number of years. He went off and played for the Rifles, played down some junior college in, I believe, California. Comes back to the Raiders this year, looking to compete with second-year man Jake LeBerge. Then he goes down in training camp with this blood clot in his lung, and it's scary, and he's not sure if he's ever going to play football again, and gets the green light, medically cleared to play, and he's really just happy. It's in warm-ups I was walking on the field, and he just said, best day of the week. I can be here with my boys competing, and he just looks to have a really great perspective on things after having such a scary experience.
Oh, I think it doesn't matter how old you are or what your experience is. Anything like that is going to give you a whole different look at how you approach the day, I think. And, but good on him. And for a 22-year-old to come back to junior football, knowing he's going to be the backup, you've got to
or not even competing at least, right? Not a handed starting job for sure.
But he's accepted that role, and you can tell by the relationship he has with LeBerge that they're working together. They're working things out, but. Yeah, you got to give him a hug, really, for what he's endured, and just say, be part of it.
Right. Looks like the Raiders are going to allow their kicker to have a go here from 37 yards, and that is no chip shot for sure.
Yeah, they're going to be called for too long in the huddle here, possibly.
Parker's long on the year is 39, so this is within his range. And it's wide. Second time all year James Parker has missed a kick, and the Huskers will concede a single point. So James Parker, I guess we gave him the broadcaster jinx, didn't we, Paul? Talking about how automatic he was, but he just pushed that one a bit wide. But, I mean, that was near his season long, so that was certainly a tough kick.
Oh, absolutely. And also there was a little bit of confusion there prior as they're setting up, and that, you got to be focused. Everything's got to be working towards kicking the football, and sometimes if you start thinking about we don't have enough guys or whatever it is, it just takes your focus away for a little bit. And it's always tough when you miss too, because now you got some of the guys that don't normally cover because you're good at kicking them. Now have to cover.
I hated covering field goals. I was always an offensive lineman. I hated that. You feel like a fish out of water kind of running downfield, and they've got this athlete coming back at you out of the end zone, and there's usually some jerk linebacker trying to ear hole you. It's not a lot of fun, Paul.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I always found when I was coaching that we tried not to keep the old linemen on there. if we could help it. But
Right.
it was also hard to find guys on the defense that, and I don't want to paint every defensive guy with this same brush, but our guys weren't that smart.
Yeah.
You know, they
Hey.
couldn't hear the snap
Hey,
count.
you're preaching to the choir. D linemen and rabid dogs, they have a few things in common, I'll tell you that. So 2nd and long after Vickland snubbed on a first down carry after the missed field goal. Huskers leading 7-4. About midway through the second quarter here.
Well, the field position game is now slanted more into the Raiders' favor here.
Yes. 4 wide receivers to the top side of the field, but
Too long in the huddle.
delay of game will be called here, and that's going to make this second down that much harder for Noah Falconer and his offense. Bob Reese, brand new head coach for the Valley Huskers this season. I've had a chance to talk to him every week with our coaches show that goes up at bcfootballconference.com, and I've been really impressed with Bob. You know, he's approaching this the right way. He's coming in eyes wide open, so to speak, as that's the phrase he uses. I know what I'm getting into. Didn't expect to go 5-5 this season. Obviously, we want to win a game as DeNoyer catches a second down pass, but he's just barely back to the original line of scrimmage. Obviously, it hasn't gone the way Bob Reese wants, but he knows it's a multi-year process. And I appreciate that sort of foresight. I just hope that the commitment is there on the other side from the organization as well to know that this is going to take a few years to build. And I feel like things are trending the right way in the Valley.
Well, I think, you know, he played football in this league and for the Abbotsford Air Force, and he was an all-star in 2001 and 2002. All-Canadian, I think it was, I don't want to get it wrong, but it was either 2001 or 2002.
Yeah.
As a defensive back, very, very good football player. And like you say, going to Manitoba allowed him to grow as a player.
Harris's punt skips out of bounds here.
But it also allowed him to grow as a coach once he decided that he wants to get into the coaching part of the game. And you learn a lot of stuff when you're around the guys that get paid for it full time.
Yeah.
You know, you get a chance to sit and film. You get a chance to be around the players all the time because in college football you're around them all the time. But coming back to BC Junior, he's got a little bit of a feel for it. He knows what this league is all about, and he knew coming in, obviously, that he's coming into a team that hasn't won a football game in 2 years. So he's putting his thumbprint on it, and the biggest change that I've noticed is the hustle.
Yeah.
They just don't give up.
He said he even had guys as Ibarra slings it to Mayo, and there's a nice tackle as Danny Harris erases one of the most elusive offensive players in this league on a nice tackle for a short gain. He said they had guys sort of scrapping it out in practice as recently as last week, and you know, not in a toxic way, a bad way, but that compete level was that high for a winless football team that guys were competing in that way at practice as Ibarra hits a nice pass up the middle of the field for a first down to McDougall.
Flag on the
but
play.
there is
That's
a flag.
offside on the Raiders.
Yeah, so this is going to come back. McDougall Edger caught that play for a first down, but it's going to come back, and I think that's Riley Simpson who's down again for the Huskers in the secondary.
Yeah, it looks like a shoulder for sure. Yeah, I was talking to their GM, Moa Gagne, before the game, and he was saying that over the last few years during the BCFC bye week, players would go home and there'd be 4 or 5 that don't come back. He said, but this year, everybody came back, and we also signed 3 more guys that came back with the guys that went home. So that's a good sign. That means the players are talking positive things about the program, and they're out promoting it and recruiting for it. So it's going to take some time, and it's an ebb and flow thing. You know, teams are up, teams are down, and unfortunately the Huskers, they've been down for so long. They've just got to get that one cog in there that's going to be there for a while, allowing – and also they've got to allow – Coach Reese an opportunity to put his own thumbprint on the team.
Simpson is up, tried to get in the huddle, but when you go down, you have to come off the field. And that's the second time he's been down. I think he's dealing with a little bit of a nagging shoulder injury right now. We are 6.5 minutes left to play here in the first half, and the Raiders have put 4 points on the board against the Valley Huskers, who have given up an average of 60 points a game roughly so far this season.
Pretty close, yes, yeah.
So the Raiders will not be happy with their performance to date. Ibarra hustled on that throw, flags come in.
I think they did get that PI.
I think there's some pass interference flags out here. James Moore was providing pressure, and he forced a quick throw from Ybarra.
Yeah, I think he definitely ran into him before the ball was there.
It is pass interference against the Huskers.
Referees, there's only 6 out there today, so you got the rotation, the way they rotate around instead of having the 7. Sometimes you might not be in position to see what the head linesman saw who threw the flag.
Right. 47 points a game the Huskers have given up this season. I shouldn't make it sound worse than it actually is.
That's a lot, though.
Yeah, it's all about perspective, Paul, isn't it?
It is, but again, the way football is played, well, any sport is played, when you're playing somebody that isn't very successful and you're putting your second, third stringers in, your second and third stringers, they want to perform and score. And, they're on BCFC TV to, back home. They want their parents or their friends to watch them play. And so they're not going to lay down.
The one stat, I think, aside from the points per game as well, is that as this ball comes out, the Raiders are saying that Bailey was down, but the Huskers have got the ball. No indication from the referees yet. It did look like Bailey was down, but was he on top of a Husker player? And this is Husker football. 3rd turnover of the first half by the Raiders. And the Valley Huskers have the football back.
Well, I didn't see, it looked like he might have been on top of a Husker player.
He wasn't running anymore, but I don't know if he was fully down.
Yeah, and there was no whistle.
Xander Bailey puts the ball on the carpet, and credit the Huskers, that was a strip as well, because you could see players in there ripping that ball out. That's what they teach you to do. And the Huskers take over with their 3rd turnover of the half and a 7-4 lead here.
Well, this is where the Raiders defense has to step up now and just try to control this football game themselves.
R.J. Begg was offside. Falconer's going to throw, and he's picked off. They turn the ball right back over into the hands of Jeremy Chang as he's returning this inside the 30-yard line. That was a flag against the Huskers offense, so they'll wave that off. This should stand as an interception by the safety of the Raiders out of NDSS.
Yeah, it does look like that it was a offside against the Huskers. Yeah, they did signal that.
So the first play after the Raiders fumble the ball away, and Noah Falconer throws an interception over the middle of the field to Jeremy Chang.
Yeah, I don't think he saw Jeremy.
He elevated well to get up and get that ball too. Falconer's 12th interception of the season as he turns that ball over. And the Raiders are in some business here.
Oh, here's your Raiders' chance to take the lead here. They're or at least tied. And another shot for Parker, possibly with field goal if there's no success.
Raiders put the ball in the hands of Bryson Mayo. Nice inside juke, and he manufactures 10 yards. And it looks like he does move the chains here.
Yeah, it does look like first down. That was a good play. Just like a jet sweep to the slot back and just let him run. Sometimes you get outside and you want to always cut back inside, and I think if you stay outside, stretch it, and use the sideline and tight rope the sideline, you're going to pick up a lot more yards.
One thing that I learned about running backs especially is they have to learn how to trust their speed.
Yes.
And some don't believe that they can get that edge and go, but once it clues in that they do have the speed to beat the edge and get around the corner, they are a lot more effective at running, as there was an effective run by Khalil Dingwell, and he gets it down to the goal line.
That was a nice little counter play, and it caught the
15 yards there.
Left.
And Bob Reist doesn't like what he's seeing right now, as this defense gives up 2 big runs, and the Raiders have 1st and goal here, looking for their first major of the day.
Well, I think it's it's one of those things. Probably Coach Hawkins said we got to get the ball on the ground. Let's just pound away, let our O-line dominate the line of scrimmage.
Ibarra hands it. Dingwell plows ahead, and he is in. Touchdown Raiders. Khalil Dingwell plows that over the goal line, and the Raiders take the lead.
But it just goes to show you, they score a touchdown there, and there was hardly any celebration.
Yeah.
Last week, there was a ton of celebration against the Rebels. So you can tell just mentally that it's a little bit different type of game that they're playing today.
3:52 left to go in the first half. And this James Parker extra point will make it 11-7 for the Raiders.
How do you see that on the scoreboard? I can't.
I'm keeping track on my notes beside me here, Paul, because you can't see the scoreboard at all. That is a persistent problem here at Caledonia Park, as anyone who frequents this league will know. You can't see the scoreboard here. Design flaw, shall we say.
Design flaw.
Not the only one here at Caledonia Park.
Oh, it's a good old park.
It's a gorgeous setting. That's another conversation, actually. It's funny, I was, getting ready this morning to come to the park and running through some sort of prep and notes in my head, and one I thought, interesting to talk about the field dynamic in Nanaimo right now. And again, we can get into this in the second half, but there is a $4 million turf lighted field being built as we speak on NDSS, the secondary school grounds here in Nanaimo. And I mean, a lot of people would argue that this park is begging for a little bit of investment.
Absolutely.
A little bit of support financially from the city and infrastructure. And instead, there's this $4 million turf field being built in another location with lights that the high school football program will be able to use. But unfortunately, as Danny Harris brings this kickoff back, breaks through a tackle. He's got a hole up over the 40-yard line. Danny Harris has nobody in front of him, but can he keep his balance? Will he get clipped off? He is taken down near the Raider 20-yard line. What a return by Danny Harris.
That was a nice return.
Thought he might lose his balance for a couple of strides there, but he stayed on his feet. A huge return, and the Huskers are deep into Raider territory.
Well, he believed in his blockers up front. He just let them set the wall and get the wedge going, and he just stayed with them and didn't try to do anything by himself. It was all help with his blockers.
So Harris brings it all the way to the Raider 20-yard line.
So this new field at NDSS, is that it's going to be lined American and
it's
made
a
American?
CFL-sized field.
Oh, beautiful.
CFL-sized field. Obviously, the high schools play American rules. It is a CFL-sized field with lights. It's turf. It's gorgeous. It is half being funded by the school district, half by the city of Nanaimo. And it's just an interesting scenario as Falconer lofts this up. Touchdown, Huskers. Perfect pass by Noah Falconer. Mariah's angle in the back of the end zone. And the Huskers retake the lead immediately after giving it up.
That's what a kick game will do for you. You get some surprise players back there, and Danny Harris isn't a slow guy. He ran out of steam there at the end, but put his team in a position to score, and right first play, they take advantage.
Second touchdown of the year for Mariah's angle. And the second of the year, touchdown pass of the year for Noah Falconer. And the Huskers take the lead right back. Incredible stuff from this Valley team.
This game might be, I'm not sure what the final or other scores were, but this might be the most points the Huskers have scored in a game thus far this year.
Yeah, I can look that up for sure, but I think you're right. So it is the Huskers back in the lead.
Coach Hawking doesn't look too happy down there, but he also realizes that the Huskers aren't going to lay down. They're going to go to the final gun.
14-11. The Huskers in the lead. We're just north of the 3-minute warning here.
You're going to find
Angle's second receiving touchdown of the year. You see the back of the head of Doug Hawking. I mean, you obviously you'll say our kick coverage broke down, but you do have to tip a hat to a great return by Danny Harris. Brings it up to the Raider 20, and then a perfect pass. Falconer to Angle.
No, the Harris return was like you drew it up on a blackboard, and the players went out and executed it. And it did what it had to do.
That was a perfect pass, too, there by Falconer.
Just a nice little
dropped it on a spot.
Shallow post, yeah. And that's what the Huskers need. Now it's up to the Raiders to respond.
High kick. off the foot of Ethan Holman. Ball is down, and the Raiders recover. Oh, my. The Husker players in the area, I don't think knew the ball was down there, Paul.
No, and Harrison Johnson from the Huskers, number 5, came in and put a really good lick on him to knock that ball loose. And I just tell you, the Raiders seem to be
sloppy.
A little sloppy, yes.
I mean, that's the third fumble of the game. They recovered it. They've given away 2, but uncharacteristic mistakes. And you have to think, Paul, you've alluded to it a couple of times, that focus, is it where it needs to be? Because you would have said to yourself, it's Husker week. You're just going through the moment. No disrespect to the Huskers, but that's the truth of the matter.
Yep.
As the Raiders are being called over, their defensive unit right now for a little bit of a team huddle right now on the sideline, as Dingwell will try to stretch this play out, and a great tackle. Jordan Ferry pulling down the Raider running back for a short gain, and we're at the 3-minute warning.
Yeah, I think the Raiders have to establish the line of scrimmage. They got to get back and get the ball on the ground, but they got to generate something that with some enthusiasm. Because right now it looks like they're just going through the motions.
Well, I mean, they really don't have a drive to their credit in this game.
No.
Their touchdown came after an interception that had them starting on the Huskers' 30-yard line. And they ran 3 plays and punched it in. So, yeah, the Huskers have scored the most points they have all season, as they put up 13 against the Rebels and a 51-13 loss. So their 14 today is their season high in points, and that has to feel so good for those kids, this young group.
Absolutely, and Coach Reese will use that they've done something here in the first half against a pretty good football team.
Yeah.
And so you build on that. And so next time, go out and get 2 more first downs. Just keep getting better and a little better here and there. But now, for the Raiders side of it, they're battling today with the Rams. A lot, I don't want to say they're going to lose this game today. At some point they'll wake up. They've just got better athletes. They're, stronger team.
History would certainly say that they will prevail in this game, but again,
because only one time the Huskers have only beaten the Raiders one time, and that was back in 2007.
Cost the Raiders coach's job that day.
That's right.
Matt Blocker, Coach Snoop, was fired after that game. Doug Hawking actually took over as the interim head coach for the rest of that season. And Coach Snoop's name in the news recently as well, as he resigned his role as head coach of the Calgary Colts, who are having a dismal season in the Prairies. And not the only coach to resign his post as well, as Kerry Joseph stepped down as head coach of the Langley Rams this week. Jeff Alamahota taking over on an interim basis there. And the rumors are abound as Ibarra throws it up for Mayo just too far. The rumors are abound of Coach Snoop going to Langley. Of course, that is a rumor at this point, but
well,
where there's smoke, sometimes there's fire.
Absolutely. I think and a lot of people, when you hear rumors, especially in the BCFC, a lot of them do come true because we've got a lot of people that have their ear to the ground. But I would find that very interesting because that would be in my opinion, a whole different direction the Rams want to go.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of layers to that onion to peel through.
Yeah,
there's no doubt. I mean, it's interesting the way the timing of that all happened too, and you wonder how much did Kerry Joseph know? How much did he hear? What was communicated to him? It's an odd situation. There's no two ways about it. And for the Rams to have a coaching change, they just won 3 football games in a row.
Yes.
They're a team on a winning streak. They moved up to 3rd place. You could argue they're playing their best football of the season as Harris is pulled back for no gain on that punt return. Huskers with a 3-point lead will take over with 2:40 left in this half at their own 45-yard line. Anyways, lots to talk about around the league as there's no shortage of storylines.
Well, sometimes, like I know when I read about KJ stepping down, there's, like you say, there's so many layers to an onion, and it's not just coaching. There's executive involved, and there's directions, and how do you view your team? what type of direction do we want to go? Is there executive interference?
I
Are
mean,
the
the
coaches
Rams
all renegades? We don't know that. So.
right. And the Rams are an organization, like most in the BCFC, run by a board of directors. People making decisions, so volunteers as a group, and the Raiders are the same way. There's a dicey pass by Falconer, and he's lucky that was high.
Yeah,
His receiver was well covered.
A wrong read on that one. For the receivers, he didn't keep his feet moving.
Huskers' 8th offensive drive of the day.
They've had the ball a lot this first half.
Yeah.
And successful for them.
Their time of possession has got to be, we don't chart that stat, but it's got to be tops that they've had this season.
Oh, easily. Probably the most offensive yards they've had as well in this first half alone.
Yeah. Falconer throwing, second down. He's hammered. Brody Taylor, the Barsby product in the backfield there. And Brody Taylor and Quinton Bowles off the ends for the Raiders. Boy, they are imposing.
They are, but to be honest with you, you don't read too much about them.
No.
They especially Quinton. He leads
10.5 sacks, leads the league.
Leads the league. He probably could be leading the CGFL. I haven't looked at that stat. But
well, you'd think
there.
so because the Prairies too have only played 5-6 games,
yes.
right? So,
but he's not that dominant type guy.
Taylor's got 4.5 sacks, and he, I believe, is tied for second. Yeah, he is. So between them, they have 15 sacks.
Yeah,
between two guys. That's really impressive. Here's Bailey. Nice punt return. He's got a step. Last man back pulls him down. Potentially touchdown saving tackle there by Erickson Deseron. Alexander Bailey with a nice return into Husker territory. With 2:20 left to go in this first half, and the Raiders down by 3.
Yeah, weaving in and out. That was a very nice return. And a very good tackle, too, on the special teams.
Huskers' 35-yard line is where this drive will start for the Raiders.
But I often thought that Bowles and Taylor should be the guys that are game changers, but they really haven't jumped out to change a series. They'll get a sack or two here and there, but they haven't been the guys that said, we're changing this series.
Well, you don't think of it typically a defensive end winning a game for you, but the Raiders, for all of the positives they have this year, is there's contact on Evan Rhodes. He catches the ball anyways, and he should have enough or near a first down, Evan Rhodes, from Jamie Ibarra. For all the things that the Raiders have done well this year, and I think they're outperforming expectations on a lot of ways, but they haven't beaten the Sun. They tied them, and they haven't beaten the Rebels.
Yeah.
That win in Week 1 against the Rams was huge, but they're going to have to beat the Rams again in Week 10 in a huge game then.
Yes.
So in between, they have victories that they should have had, right? So for all the positive things, and you talk about Bryson Mayo and Quinton Bowles and Brody Taylor, they still have a lot to prove.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, because those are the guys you want to rely on in the big game.
Right, and I think my point there was, like you said, have they won a game? Their numbers are good, but have they taken over a game?
Right.
Last week, did they make Scott Borden so flustered all day that he couldn't run the Rebels offense? I don't think you could say that, right?
No,
So
you cannot say that.
There's the sort of the catch-22 on stats and production and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you want your big guys to step up, especially your older guys, like Quinton being 22 years old. You want him to step up and make a play, make that one sack or make that one tackle on an important 2nd and 2 or something like that.
And to be fair, what was that? Was it 5 sacks he had against the Broncos?
Yes.
And so that was half of his season's production, tied a CJFL record for sacks in a single game by a player, but.
And not taking anything away from him.
No.
You're playing hard, and the guys you're playing against are playing hard as well. It's just that you kind of expect those guys to step up and make that play, make something happen, a good kick return, or your quarterback completing a pass when you need to complete a pass.
Yeah.
And I think those are the things that the Raiders used to do constantly, all the time, but they haven't had that over the last couple of years where they've had that game changer.
Dingwell on 2nd down. He's got the first down. A pretty bruising run there, and Khalil Dingwell's been pretty effective today out of the backfield. Zamora in the area, so is Travis Dietrich.
That's not it. Well, all the Huskers there went to the football, so they've seen something on film to say we're going to go after this football today because they were working hard at it and tugging it.
Well, that's a coaching thing, too.
Yes.
You know, a reaction like that is taught.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
So credit the Huskers
Absolutely.
staff. And Bob Reese he was a defensive guy, was he not, in his day?
Yeah, he was.
So he would have taught that. Minute 40 to go in the first half. Raiders driving. Inside the Husker 25 on first down. That pass complete near the sticks to Bonnet Plume. I think he'll have
pretty close to the first
right
down.
on pretty much, so 9.5, 10 yards there. Lots of other action today coming up on BCFCTV.com. 4 o'clock kickoff. The game of the week for my money, West Shore and Langley. And at McLeod Athletic Park, the Rebels going on the road for the first time since week 3, I think, as they've won 6 consecutive football games. The Rams have won 3 in a row. And the Rams, if they don't want to come here to Caledonia and likely face a must-win week 10, they're going to have to find a way to pick up points against either the Rebels or the Okanagan Sun.
Oh, they've got a tough road these next 3 games. And with a coaching change in there, I'm not sure what the...
Mayo, nice spin move, and he's going to score. Bryson Mayo, just electric moves from that young man. His 10th touchdown of the season, leads the league as he spins back to the inside, and the Raiders retake the lead.
Yeah, that was a nice play. Just as he caught the ball, he knew somebody was coming on his outside shoulder close to the sideline and cut back spin move. And
That's
an
incredible
grabbing
spin.
air there. It's one of those things that you look on the ground, you find a jock, as I used to say.
Yeah, I think it was Riley Simpson there who just got evaded in a big way. 10th total touchdown of the season for Bryson Mayo, his 8th as a receiver.
That's not bad. That means his other 2 are on the kick returns, and they've been getting his hands on the ball as a runner as well.
One is a missed field goal return, the other was a punt return touchdown.
That was the same game, wasn't it not?
Yeah, it was against Kamloops, yep. He had, I think, 402 yards, I want to say, in that game, all-purpose yardage.
Wow.
Jamie Ybarra connecting on that touchdown pass. Ybarra's 2nd passing touchdown of the season in his limited action.
So I see the Raiders have some guys that aren't dressed that were instrumental in the game last week. Is that just resting them, or like a little nicks and bruises?
I honestly don't know. I mean, Nathan Mares is sitting out. Jake LeBerge is sitting out. Probably both, to be honest. It does, and again, not a disrespectful stance, but you like to, as a head coach going into a week like this, be able to give maybe guys that are nagging with injuries a break.
Well, it allows you an opportunity to see how your 2nd and 3rd stringers, fare against the competition, based on the fact that you get to go full speed.
Right.
You can't go full speed at home when you're practicing.
So the Raiders offense has woken up to an extent here. They do have 2 touchdowns in their last 3 drives, although both of them started inside the Husker 40.
That's true. Short
so
field,
that helps a lot.
What you want. Yep.
And this will be a long field for the Huskers here with 70 seconds left in the half. They trail 18-14. They'll start from their own 15-yard line here.
Well, here's a chance where you can, create something defensively and score before the half. Field goal helps. Touchdown even better. And for the Huskers, a first down can pretty well take them into the halftime.
Handoff to Vickland. Ball's out. They're going to say he's down.
that was close.
That was very close.
I picked up about 2 yards. Clock will be in the Huskers' favor here unless the Raiders want to use their timeout.
Yeah, I was going to say it would be interesting to see if the Raiders call the timeout here. They're not going to. So the clock is...
Maybe Doug's itch and just get him in the change room and rip him apart.
Clock running. Under a minute to go in the half now. Second and about 8. Husker 15-yard line here. Falconer milking the clock down. Looks right side. He's got R.J. Begg off the fingertips, and that's a combination there of 2 misplays. I think that ball is thrown too high, and then Begg, well, you know what they say, Paul, hits your hands. You should have caught it.
Yeah, well, he was moving, and the ball was just slightly behind him. It was on his back shoulder. But always, since Noah's entered the league, his throwing motion is very deceptive. It's one of those ones that you look, how do you complete those?
Right.
But his completion percentage isn't that bad, but he seems to be able to do it. And but that one there was definitely, Rob was working to his right, and the ball was on his back shoulder. And tough to squeeze that one. But there was an opportunity there for the Raiders to intercept that for sure.
Well, when it goes off the fingertips like that, the tip drill
Yes.
gets scary for
It
the
stops
offense.
the clock, too. That's the other thing. He's going to put the ball back in the Raiders' hands here with some time left before halftime.
30-odd seconds on the clock. Harris does a nice job of getting away, but then this is field goal range already. Depending on where this went out of bounds, they'll mark it at the 32-yard line. So even if the Raiders don't gain a yard, James Parker will be within his range.
I was interested. I don't know why he didn't pound it there. He was right-footed kicker running to his left. Very difficult to get it downfield. So that's going to happen, to put it out of bounds.
Third straight drive, VI has started inside the Husker 35.
Well, this is one of the ones. They're going to, obviously, they got to come away with some points here. Makes you feel a little bit happier when you go into halftime, because I think they know they're going to get yelled at a little bit. Just more of a wake-up yell than anything else.
They call them teaching points, Paul.
Teaching
points.
Yes,
it's a teachable moment. Ybarra, end zone.
That's PI.
PI.
Sure. Number 13. That'll put the ball on the 1-yard line.
Do they do that, or is it just 15 yards?
In the end zone, I think they do move it.
No
to
matter
the
where it came
I think
from.
So
okay.
yeah, I could be wrong in that, but
we'll see how they apply it.
Often thought any time in the end zone.
That's a tough call. I mean, you could argue uncatchable on that.
Oh, I guess
as Road was interfered with, so they will march this ahead.
I'm not sure the officials are having a little bit of. It's got to be. Okay.
Yeah, 15-yard penalty. Up to inside the Husker 20. 26 seconds on the clock. I don't believe the Raiders have used all their timeouts yet, so they have no real problems with time here. 3 wide receivers, top side of the field. Ybarra looks that way. Oh, dangerous pass, picked off by Joshua Robinson. Ybarra is the only man that might be able to catch him. He will not. Robinson with a pick 6, about 100 yards the other way. And the Raiders continue to make mistakes. The Huskers back in the lead.
Well, that was interesting. I didn't think Jamie was going to throw that football, because just from our vantage point, don't throw that ball. Interesting. I thought he would have gone to the end zone for sure.
You could see as soon as that ball left his hands, I thought, oh no. Joshua Robinson elevates and goes to the house. Pick 6 for the Huskers. And they lead 20-18 pending an extra point. And Jamie Ybarra is having a conversation with his head coach right now.
Yeah, I think the Raiders definitely are going, what the heck's going on here today? And that's what the 5th time the ball's been in the Huskers' hands.
4th turnover.
4th turnover.
2 picks, 2 fumbles.
That's very uncharacteristic of the Raiders for sure.
About 100 yards roughly returned there by Robinson. Don't have the exact yardage. And you see Jamie Ybarra, Todd Hansons, Doug Hawking trying to break that one down. That is just the wrong throw to make there.
Well, definitely he had to see him.
You hope. He was in all green. He's all green.
Yeah, just interesting. I'm not sure why Jamie would have thrown that ball. But anyhow, he saw something different than we saw for sure.
Sure.
Unless it was
Easy
called.
from up here.
Absolutely. And, and a lot of times, sometimes they'll say, throw it to this guy because this is how we're going to run the other routes. So maybe the pattern set up that way, and that's who he was dedicated to throw to.
Pick 6 from
But then you got to look at Robinson. He did a great job reading that.
Pick.
And then you got to run.
Oh, this extra point is blocked. So that's notable because it makes it a 2-point lead instead of a 3-point lead, 20-18.
Yeah, Dexter Shea got across on that one and made that block.
10 seconds left to go here in the half. Wow, unbelievable what we've seen here. Josh Robinson, that is his first interception of the season. Obviously his first touchdown of the season as well.
Yeah, go down as one of the longer ones for sure in BCFC history.
What did Kyle Clarat have earlier? Was it a 106-yard pick six earlier this year? Yeah, so won't be the longest of the year, but it's right up there.
It's up there. Anytime you get anytime you get above 55, because a lot of people you got to weave through on the way to an end zone.
Raiders average 3 turnovers a game, so they've outperformed that in the first half against the winless Huskers. I mean that'll drive a coach to insanity.
Yeah, and so, and a couple of them, obviously, interceptions are bad decisions, or at least from our standpoint, they're bad decisions. And then I think the ball on the ground with the fumbles is
that's
that
mental errors.
Mental thing.
Mayo, after putting it on the ground, will be hauled down with 1 second left in the half, and a flag comes in late here. 1 second to go before the Raiders will go into the locker room where the paint may peel.
We got an injury down the field as well to a Husker. And it looks like Mayo's hurt a little bit too. An unsportsmanlike conduct penalty against the Raiders. Against the Huskers. Objectionable conduct.
That is 4 lead changes in the second quarter.
Wow.
Yeah. Because it was 7-4 for the Huskers on when Parker missed a field goal. About 9 minutes to go in the second quarter. It was 7-4 Huskers. Raiders then scored to make it 11-7. Huskers came right back and scored to make it 14-11. 2 drives later, the Raiders made it 18-14, and there the pick 6 to restore the Husker lead to 20-18. So 4 lead changes in one half,
that's pretty
or one quarter, no less.
Some of the viewers might think they're tuned into a Sun Raider game where a lot of scoring goes on.
Nathan Denoyer getting off the field under his own power here.
That's pretty good. You gotta tip your hat to the Huskers. That's playing a great first half.
You say 4 lead changes, so that's 2 chances for a winless team to admit defeat, to say,
absolutely,
we had a great start.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's going to go the way we think it's going to go, and they didn't do that.
Yeah. And also, and when you get an opportunity here, they've got the lead. They've been doing some positive things, and you don't look at the team that you come to play. You're on the boat coming here, and you might be thinking, well, at the end, we're going to get beat and all that stuff. But now you're thinking, hey, we can play with these guys.
Yeah.
And you just let the game go. You just throw the ball out and say play. And I think that's a lot of times what teams miss. We try to overanalyze too many things, and you miss the block here, let the guys play. And once you start letting them play, they get the feel for the game. They start to feel better about themselves as an athlete as well, knowing that they can play against the bigger guys or the more athletic team or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, the Huskers go in the change room, do their thing. Raiders are going to go in their change room, do their thing, and they come out, and it'll be a completely different second half.
We will see. We will also be taking a short break here. First half in the books. I think there's going to be some eye-popping done when followers of the BCFC on Twitter and Facebook see the halftime score get posted for this game, because It has the visiting Valley Huskers with a 20-18 lead over the Vancouver Island Raiders. We will be back with second half kickoff in about 15 minutes. You are watching BCFCTV.com, powered by RE/MAX. Welcome back inside Caledonia Park here in Nanaimo, week number 8 in the British Columbia Football Conference. You are watching BCFCTV.com, powered by Remax. Dominic Abassi, Paul Short by my side, MyGen Multimedia. Doug Watson behind the camera. Forgot to mention Doug in the first half. Unbelievable stuff from me there. So I couldn't do this without Doug and MyGen Multimedia, providing the fantastic camera work for what has been, I don't even know how to describe it, an odd first half. Some really incredible plays. We saw a 93-yard pick six. We've seen the Raiders offense move the ball a little bit at times. We've seen the Huskers offense do very little, but they have a 20-18 lead as the Huskers will get the ball back to start this second half. And Paul, what are some takeaways that you have watching that first 30 minutes?
Well, to me, it was kind of like the Raiders coming in going, oh, man, we're playing the Huskers. We'll kick these guys. And the Huskers coming in going, oh, man, we're playing the Raiders. They're going to kick us. But then the Huskers found out, hey, we can play with these guys. And I think the Raiders are going, hey, geez, they can play with us. They're good.
Mm-hmm.
And both teams just really, I don't think they were really focused for this game based on that, you know, it was supposed to go how it's supposed to go. Like the script is set out, 0-17 versus a team that's 3-1. And at the end of the day, both teams have realized, hey, we can do this. Let's play. Don't let these guys play.
Here's Josh Robinson, who ended the first half with a 93-yard pick six, and he will start the second half with a roughly 20-yard return out to the 30-yard line, which is where the Huskers will start with the ball. Some offensive stats in the first half for Valley. Their quarterback, Noah Falconer, 5 of 9, 59 yards passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Their only runner to carry the ball was Keegan Vickland, 7 carries, 9 yards, did have a short touchdown plunge. As other than that, I mean, just 68 yards of total offense for the Valley Huskers, but they did get a score on a 93-yard touchdown return, as I mentioned, by Josh Robinson. They also had that short 1-yard touchdown run by Keegan Vickland, and they also had a 20-yard touchdown pass to Marias Engel, as Vickland starts the half with a catch out of the backfield for a short game. So a passing touchdown, a pick six, and a rushing touchdown, a plunge from the 1-yard line. The scoring plays for the Huskers in that first half, they did have their extra point at the end of the half blocked, which is why they have a 20, not 21-18 lead.
Well, 68 yards total offense for the Huskers, and they got 20 points on the board. Just goes to show you how important turnovers are.
Oh, boy, Raiders turned the ball over 4 times in the first half. 2 picks, 2 fumbles, and the points off turnover were real for sure, because the Huskers, as they incomplete here on second down, Falconer looking for Engel. The Huskers got 13 points off turnovers.
Yeah, that's big. That's huge. You don't see that a lot in junior football to begin with, not in the BCFC, that get 1 or 2 touchdowns.
Their
maybe during the year.
First touchdown was following an interception by Alex Zamora, and they started inside Raider territory, went down and scored, and then, of course, the pick six. So that's direct points off turnovers there. So the Raiders, we'll see. We alluded to Doug Hawking likely going in with some furor for his team in the
some
in the
of
locker
the kids
room.
were running in there quickly in the locker room to jump into their equipment bag to hide. But this is a good start for the Raiders here.
A lot of room here on the sideline for Tristan Muir, and he's going to put his Raiders in fantastic field position inside the Husker 30-yard line.
Yeah, that's what the Raiders needed. To come out, start the second half, stop the Huskers, make them punt, get good field position, and take control of this game starting right now.
Husker 25 is where this drive is going to start, as Muir had a good return there. Raiders, 3 of their 4 drives to end the half started inside the Husker 35, but they were only able to score twice off of that. The third one ended in points against on the pick six. Ybarra, I know he himself will expect more from himself. He'll think he should be doing more in this game as a 22-year-old veteran, as they hand it off to Khalil Dingwell. Dingwell, the Raiders' leading rusher in the first half, 7 carries, 48 yards and a touchdown. Xander Bailey had 6 carries for 27 yards. Ybarra was 8 of 16, 95 yards passing, 2 interceptions. to his record, 1 touchdown. Bryson Mayo caught that touchdown. He had 3 catches for 20 yards. Raiders with 203 yards of offense in the first half of this football game, but they come out trailing by 2 points.
Oh, their yardage is pretty good, but you get a look at the 2 of the turnovers were in scoring territory. A fumble by Yerbear and that interception return for a touchdown was
There's a
perfect.
pass hauled in, leaping in the air to bring it in, and then carrying it in for a touchdown is Adam Finnick. And the perfect start for the Raiders. They get a 2-and-out on defense, and they go down the field, 2 plays, touchdown, and they've got the lead back. Our 5th lead change of the game.
That's not bad. That's junior football. It's perfect.
Finnick went up and pulled that in, and that wasn't a perfect pass by any stretch of the imagination. But Finnick pulled it down. Ibarra's 2nd passing touchdown of the day.
Oh, it's again, like I said, it's something that the Raiders needed to get a good start here in the 3rd quarter. Here you get probably a 2-point conversion here on the miss.
There's a flag down here as the 2-point conversion is good.
I think that's going to be a legal block against the Raiders, I would suspect.
There is a flag down here.
Yeah, just a bad snap into the ground. The holder picked it up and used his legs to score the 2. Now they're going to back him up 10 and retry, I would suspect. Yes, another Raiders have to have their defense clicking, all on the same page. The special teams start to, step up. That's what they're noted for, is the special teams. They got a really good field goal kicker, good punter, and the return game is out of this world. So they need all 3 fastest working to sort of take control of this football game, get back into it. There's a lot of points been left on the board in that first half.
Well, 4 turnovers is in a half, no matter who your opponent is, really not good. For lack of a more eloquent way to say it. I mean, really.
Really, really bad.
It is. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So they'll retry the extra point. Looked like there were penalties both ways there,
Well,
Paul.
I think what happened is it was a penalty against the Raiders, and the options are, I think, to take it now or take it in the kickoff.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, the extra point is good after all that.
So I think that was probably what the options are, but again, I could be wrong. And I'm not wrong that often, but sometimes I'm wrong.
Yeah. Let's not get carried away, Paul. 3rd quarter, 3 minutes in. Raiders now 25-20 with the lead. 5th lead change, as I said, of this game. And really the 5th lead change in like the last 10 minutes of football time played.
Yeah, that's pretty
Which
good.
is just wild. I mean, it's so weird because we're talking about this as a shocking result right now, which it is, and we're surprised. But if this were a Rebels-Raiders or a Raiders-Sun game, you'd be saying, wow, heavyweights going toe-to-toe, back and forth. But it's such a different dynamic to it today. But what we have is 2 teams who are both playing gutsy football and just going back and forth.
Yeah, and I think, but this is the time in the game where you take the gloves off and you say, okay, now let's put these guys down.
Yeah.
If they get an opportunity, they score again on this next series. If they can stop the Huskers here and score another touchdown, then the Huskers mentally are going to go, oh, geez, here we go again.
Right.
Then you can jump all over them. But if you leave them in the game, it's going to challenge you mentally to say, what did we do wrong? And you're maybe not doing anything wrong. You just weren't really mentally prepared to play these guys and realizing this Husker team's not a bad football team.
High kick.
It was a very nice play by
And a nice
Paisley,
tackle.
I think it was. Yeah, Josh Paisley came down there and made that tackle. Beautiful tackle.
Paisley working his way back to health. Suffered what I believe was a dislocated elbow.
Yeah, that was against
Very early, game 1 of the season, and he was out. I mean, what a piece to be without. Last season was so incredible. Led the BCFC in defensive points. He's a 4th-year guy out of Lethbridge. Really a leader on the defense for the Vancouver Island Raiders. And
he's also a very good kick returner. He's one of the all-time
sure,
leaders
yes.
in the BCFC.
Is that right? I didn't.
He is, yes.
For overall yardage? Or?
Overall yardage and the number of returns.
4th-year guy. He's been around. Here's Vickland. Flag comes out.
I think that's probably a hold.
Got to be a hold.
Get the signal right here from the official, hopefully.
It's the head referee, Chris Short, today calling the shots for this crew wearing the white hat. Other action in the BCFC will be starting in about an hour and 20 minutes as they'll kick off in Langley, where the Rebels will visit the Rams. The Rams 4-3 in third place. West Shore in second place at 6-1. Okanagan first place 6-0-1. The Raiders in fourth 3-3-1. Kamloops and Valley out of the mix. Kamloops, for you real sticklers out there, is not quite mathematically eliminated from the playoffs, but if I'd be willing to bet my house they won't make the playoffs. Let's put it that way.
I thought when they lost to the Rebels, you'd stick a fork in them then. And
yeah,
again, another team that they're playing hard, but every league across the country has two teams that are dominating, two teams at the bottom, and then you got two teams in the middle.
A nice spin move by Vicklin, but then he gets run over by Dexter Shea. Welcome to the BCFC rookie. As Dexter Shea, the fifth-year veteran out of John Barsby, comes over with a shot on the rookie out of Abbotsford in Vickland.
Yeah, I think that was a way. Holy cow, hello. Yeah, that's another guy. Dexter's another guy that really hasn't been as dominating as you expected him to be for this year.
He led the league in tackles last year.
Yes. Was
so noticeable. And really, you have very little conversation about him this year, you're right.
Because he was an all-star last year. And
he actually came into camp and was lobbying the coaches to play as a running back, which kind of blew my mind because, like you said, was an all-star. Was he not an all-Canadian last year as well? He was definitely a BCFC all-star.
Oh, yeah, he's been an all-star every couple of years.
Right, here's Meir with a nice move to shake a tackle, and he'll return this into Husker territory again. And now he's pulled down at the 20-yard line on a good tackle.
Punter,
Ethan Holman. Maybe a touchdown saving tackle.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, Dexter Shea comes in as a fifth-year guy, a linebacker his whole career, an all-Canadian, an all-star in this league. And he says, I want to try running back. So the coaches kind of called his bluff, and they said, hey, go ahead. If it doesn't work, guess where you're going? Back to linebacker. And sure enough, he's their starting middle linebacker. So
again, yeah. Well, I think, again, you're 22. Maybe you figure you could, help the team in that position. But that also takes a lack of focus away from being the linebacker.
Oh, sure, yeah.
At the start, you missed camp as a linebacker, so it takes you a while to warm up. And it's a long season, but camp is there to get you into football shape, so you're recognizing and doing everything you need to do.
No, training camp's a waste of time, Paul. Come on.
Oh, I love
I hate training camp. That's a coach perspective. I was a player, and so were you a lot, but I hated training camp. That was 2-a-days. Oh,
yeah. I wasn't a fan of 2-a-days. We'd do them because it was kind of the fad at the time. But
right.
Yeah, I didn't like 2-a-days. When we did 2-a-days when I was coaching down in Victoria, and it was the morning practice was in gear, the afternoon practice was in shorts. So that's was our 2-a-days.
The Raiders used to, in the glory days, if you will, used to do their training camps in Port Alberni, which is about 45 minutes west of here, of Nanaimo. And they'd go up and they'd stay, all the team, we would stay in the gym up there in a rec center, so you'd sleep on your mattresses, and the coaches would sleep up on the stage, and it was sort of like you just went away. It was like a team retreat, right? And all you were focused on was your brothers and football, and that was it. And you got fed in the gym. They brought in caterers, and you'd work on the field twice a day with practices, and it was a very professional style atmosphere of training camp, and that really, I think, was incredibly advantageous. And then those were teams that went on to win 3 Canadian Bowls.
And I think that's part of the reason why there's 3 Canadian Bowl championships hanging up here, is that part.
But budgets as they are, and junior football as it is, it was incredibly expensive.
Yes.
As you can think, feeding and housing 60 to 80 young men, as Bailey will score. There is a flag down. Let's wait and see. A 20-yard rip from Xander Bailey right up the middle, but
Botel, I think, got a hold of one of the Huskers.
Yeah, they're going to bring it back. A touchdown off the board on a holding penalty there.
But again, this is something. Now the Raiders are starting to dominate this game. They've held the Huskers both times they've had the ball this third quarter.
2 and outs.
And this is what the Raiders needed to get themselves back in here to focus up to say, okay, let's get it over with. Let's go home.
Well, in this poor Husker defense, I mean, they've been pinned inside their own 30-yard line for the better part of the last quarter and a half.
Yes.
So that wears on you. And then this group is having a good day, but that'll wear.
And then you said they start having success, and you go back to your comfort zone and go, here we go again.
Right.
It takes a lot of mental discipline to not look at it like that.
1st and 20 after the holding penalty. Ibarra rolls and throws off the hands of Finnick and incomplete. Brings up 2nd and very long here. And that could be a really big penalty there. Took points off the board, and now the Huskers have a chance to force what would be a 37-yard field goal here.
Yeah, it'd be a long field goal the way this game's going.
Parker missed from 37 earlier today, only his 2nd miss of the season. His long is 39, though. It's in his range, but.
And on that last play there, I didn't think Ibarra had to roll out, and being a right-handed quarterback going to his left is very difficult.
I think it looked like a designed roll. The line was definitely shuffling left, but
they did step
why
up.
you would roll your right-handed quarterback left, it's kind of making things harder than they need to be. Here's play action. First, 2nd down and 20, slings it to Mayo, caught it over the sticks, came back short of them, and
pretty close.
Very close. So that'll be a 20-yard completion on 2nd down. Should be enough for a 1st down. And you see it in glimpses today from Jamie Ibarra, but he stepped into that pass almost like a pitcher and just slinged it in there.
Yeah, he threw one down in the 2nd quarter, start of the 2nd quarter, the same thing. He has authority on the ball, and he stepped through it. He used his body to throw the football. And this pass play, the last one to Mayo, was on a line as well.
And it was the exact opposite kind of throw that got pick six, right?
Yes.
It had a little flutter on it.
Yeah.
Ibarra calling the signals here, 1st and 10 from the 10. Not sure if this is a goal situation here or not. Bailey, short gain, going to bring up 2nd, and it's 2nd and goal for all intents and purposes here.
Yeah, they couldn't get a 1st down. Looks like they can get a first, maybe.
It's hard to tell where that stick is down there.
It's kind of weird looking over there. Yeah, it might be close. Might be able to nudge the goal line to get a 1st down. But this is the dagger. This is a score here is going to put the dagger in the game. And
Raiders are up 5 right now. Would make it 12 with a converted touchdown here.
And all this running in the game it's making the clock run too.
Yeah,
so the clock
we're
is in
already
your favor.
7 minutes into the 3rd quarter here. This is only the 2nd drive of the half for the Raiders, thrown out of the back of the end zone here. So they're going to send out James Parker. So, that's a win for the Huskers there.
Oh, absolutely. But again, Jamie was thrown off his back foot. He's backing up when he released that football, so that's why it sailed on him. And he had him wide open. The receiver was wide open. Well, I shouldn't say wide open, but he was behind the defenders.
Parker today 1 for 2. He's 14 of 16 on the season. This will be 17 yards roughly. Like a 15-yarder. That's weird, don't they usually put the T 7 yards back?
Yes.
Well, that's 5 here. Good snap, good hold, and a good kick. So 3 points, and the Raiders' lead is 8.
And that's why the head official didn't signal that right away. Maybe he just lost the ball in the trees or something and couldn't see.
7.5 minutes.
A little bit like a little victory for the Huskers. Hold them to a field goal. You're going to take the ball back at the 35, and now you go generate a couple 1st downs.
Huskers' 12th offensive drive of the game.
That's a lot.
They had 9 in the first half, and it would have been 10, except Josh Robinson decided to selfishly take that return all the way for a touchdown. Didn't let his offense even get on the field.
93 yards. That was a good return. Showed his speed for sure.
Well, Ybarra was the only one who would have had a chance, and didn't happen. There's R.J. Begg, and maybe he wasn't quite ready for that ball coming in. The fifth-year man unable to corral a pass that looked pretty on the mark from Noah Falconer.
Yeah, I don't want to say he lost it in the sun, but that's kind of the reaction he had.
Yeah, that sun is coming right at that angle, too. It changes quite a bit here at Caledonia Park when the season switches, because typically the Raiders would play 4 o'clock starts here at home in the summer. They played 2 p.m. starts all this summer, I think because of ferry scheduling.
Yes.
But this was a 1 o'clock start. And obviously with it being now fall, the sun's going to be in a different place as well. And there's a play that is an opportunity missed, as Falconer put one up for Lawler in the seam, and he was open, but the pass was not on the money. And it'll be the third straight 2 and out.
Yeah, I think that's what some of the problems Noah's been having throwing the footballs. He lets it sail on him a little bit, and that's probably why he's struggling a little bit this year with that. Because he was wide open. Lawler was right down the seam. And
2 open receivers on this drive, and
but
no
again, this is what the Raiders had to do. You want to stop them and get the ball back, put it in the hands of your playmakers, and go down and score again.
The league leader in touchdowns, I think you call him a playmaker, Bryson Mayo, standing at his own 35-yard line. And it's a fake punt here, and they have a man. It's Denoyer. He's right on the stick, and he's got it. It's a fake punt, and it's good for a first down. What a call by the Huskers. Gutsy, but I guess nothing to lose.
Absolutely.
And they connect. Danny Harris.
And it might be something they haven't tried before, you haven't seen on film, so catch everybody napping. But yeah, you get just enough for the first down. Hang on to the football. It's their first down of this second half.
Keeps this drive alive. I thought Danny Harris might have short-armed that pass a bit there, and didn't know if Denoyer was going to be able to come back to it, but he did, and got down for a first down.
Well, I didn't see who was covering Denoyer, but he was certainly running as fast as he could since he recognized that it was a pass pattern.
Yeah. So a first down, looked like a false start there, and it is. So
yeah,
bring that 5 yards back.
Jumped.
Be sure to send us a tweet. We'd love to hear from you. At Dom Abassi. You can also follow the league on their official Twitter at BCFC_media. And have to hand it to the BCFC on their Facebook and Twitter pages this year. Very active, a lot of content going up there. And definitely a great way to follow this league in all the markets.
Well, it's been a resurgence, if you will, of BCFC. It was a little quiet over the last couple of years, but what Blake Roberts has done, getting this fired up, the BCFC TV, powered by Remax, is one of those things that will generate interest, and it doesn't turn fans away. It just gives an opportunity for some people to watch the team play, especially on the road.
Falconer on 1st and 15 gets about 10, sets up second and manageable. Yeah, I think that notion that webcasting our games is going to keep fans out of the park, that is, that could not be more antiquated, because it's just not the truth. And there are no fans that I can think of ever that would say, if that field in Caledonia Park's 20 minutes away from my home, I'll just stay home and watch it. I mean, that's not happening. But you have to be, in my estimation, a legitimate league, have a streaming platform of games. You look at what the BC Hockey League has done with their platform. It's really taken that league. All the hockey leagues across North America in junior hockey are streaming their games, and you're dealing, I think, with some more infrastructure issues as Falconer completes to beg for what should be a first down here. Infrastructure issues are a little tougher at some of the football stadiums as opposed to the rinks. Almost all have internet connections, right? Even here at Caledonia Park, we don't even have a hardwired internet connection. Took us 8 years to even get what we have now, right? But it's a great step forward, I think, for the league, and something you have to have.
Oh, absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, getting that infrastructure in place will come from this.
Right.
As everything moves forward and people start recognizing the importance of it, and you'll attract sponsors that are going to pay for some of this stuff. And that's the other part of it, is you're going to attract people that want to be attached to it.
Right.
And that's going to happen sooner than later, based on the quality of what's being tried to put out there and what is being put out there.
Short gain by Vickland. Have to hand it to the Huskers and their offensive coordinator, Corey Hamade. There is a commitment to the run, and it has not worked today. Vickland is averaging about 1 yard a carry, but they have not abandoned it, and you have to respect that.
Yeah, but statistically throughout the year, I have the numbers at home.
Vickland is averaging 2 yards a carry.
Yeah, I know. But even as a team, I don't think they've rushed for more than 100 yards in a game yet.
2.5 yards a carry for Vickland on the season. That's a great play on. A tough flag there. I guess he did come over the back a bit, did Tristan Meir, but looked like he undercut that route, which was intended for DeAndre O'Connor. I don't know. That's a tough one, Paul. Looked like Meir made a nice approach on the ball there.
I thought he played the football. He got the football, but his left hand might have been around the receiver.
Yeah,
and that's what I
think he did have a touch on the back there as he came in.
Because the official was right there, so he definitely threw the flag because he did see something. I don't think the officials throw flags just to throw flags, do they?
I've seen it. I've seen it happen before. That's a tough call, but it certainly could have gone either way. What is that? It's got to be 4 or 5 pass interference calls in this game.
Yes, I know.
Quite a bit more than usual.
Yeah, there's been a couple, 3 against the Raiders for sure.
Yeah. So 1st and 10 after the penalty to the Raider 37 here for the Huskers, trailing by 8. 3 minutes left to go in the third quarter. High, fluttering pass across the field and batted away, incomplete there.
That was Josh Paisley. That, again, just get in the guy's way, because the way Falconer throws the football, the ball's in the air a long time, so you do have a chance to break on the ball and make a play.
Intended for Denver Lebedeau. Falconer calling in personnel change on the offense here as Mason Palak checks in, Cody Lawler checks out, 2nd and 10. A big down here for the Husker offense. Boy, their defense could really use another first down here.
I think you might see them go for 3rd down if they don't get first down here.
Yeah, why not? Blitz. Falconer gets away once, but not twice. Not sure who will get credit for the sack at the end of it all. Probably Matt Hill. And there's an offensive lineman a little worse for wear. The blitz got home in a hurry there, and Falconer had no chance.
Well, they got on the backfield real quick, and then as he stepped up, the old lineman collapsed and nowhere to go. But that's what we were talking about in the first half with Quinton and Brody. They gotta make those plays. They gotta get across the line of scrimmage and harass the quarterback just like that.
So a punt after a pretty good drive overall from the Huskers that was prolonged by a fake punt. Harris, a legitimate punt this time. Bryson Mayo, look out. Look out here. Oh, there's flags. That's going to bring this back. Won't matter. A bit of a horse tackle flag, horse tackle as well, or horse collar tackle.
So a horse collar tackle and probably legal block, which 2 officials saw. So I would think they'll come back to where the hold was and move the ball ahead 5 yards. Since there's 2 penalty flags.
Bob Reese doesn't like the call. He has an argument. He's saying horse collar is supposed to be on the pads. And that was all jersey, to be fair.
True.
But it did have the optics of a guy being pulled down sort of from that back of the neck area.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and it's all about safety, too. We want to make sure our players leave the game, better than they came. They're going to be little bumps and bruises, but you don't want them where they're going to miss the football because they got injured.
Well, I think only people that leave games better than when they started are kickers, Paul. Come on. Or maybe.
They're getting their toes and nails done down.
Yeah.
Manicure's happening.
I'm hard on the kickers, but that's.
Those are kickers.
I played my whole career with very eccentric kickers, so I think it sort of spoiled me, right? I think they're all like that now, but we used to call our kicker Nail, as in hangnail,
right?
Because I think he missed a game once because of a hangnail. And Scott Dixon was arguably the best kicker in the history of the CJFL. And with the Raiders, especially in those 2 years, I mean, the amount of points he put up was incredible. And, of course, he won a Canadian Bowl with a kick against the Edmonton Wildcats in this park in 2006, a last-second field goal to win the game.
That's right. Yeah, I think that's where the game's changed, too, is your kickers now are specialized as kickers.
Right.
Used to be a big old lineman that just happened to be able to kick the ball.
Right.
You know, and by the fourth quarter, he was so tired, he'd get away those 18-yard kicks.
Right, yeah. Own 25-yard line where this drive's starting here for the VI Raiders. 2nd and 10.
Yeah, another pass that just Jamie threw off his back foot and just sails on him. And if he can step into it, he's got some authority on the passes.
Jake LeBerge is not dressed. He's a non-active player in the bench area is how he's officially designated on the roster today. 3 wide receivers top side of the field. Backs flanking Ybarra in the backfield. Huskers bring 4-man pressure. Play action. Now the pressure's through. Ybarra gets away and completes it to his back Dingwell, but it won't be enough. And this is going to end in a punt here.
Well, I don't know why he bailed so early. He had lots of time back there, but he had heads-up play to find Dingwell just to avert the sack.
Thought he was just throwing that away. And Dingwell came out of nowhere and pulled it in. Minute and a half left to go, third quarter. Raiders lead by 8. Thanks to our 5th lead change of the game that put them back in the lead early in this second half. Nick Hunchak will kick this away. One of the better punters statistically in this league. And the Raiders, too, Paul, you talk about specialized kickers. Look at this, a great kick, spiraling. Forces Harris back to his 35. I mean, Nick Hunchak only punts. He isn't even typically you'll see a place kicker punter.
Yes.
Do both. But you've got James Parker, your place kicker. Nick Hunchak is your punter, a dedicated roster spot to a punter. I mean, you would not have seen that even certainly 10 years ago.
No, absolutely not. But if you have a punter that's doing that every punt,
there's value.
Not, yeah.
There is value to that for sure.
But the same with the punting this year, as we were talking about earlier with the receiving and the rushing more than the receiving. It's just that we don't have those dynamic guys, already pounding out 1,000 yards rushing, or a punter that's averaging 45 yards a kick. We're all in that 32, 33-yard range.
Hunchak is his gross average is 37.2 yards. So that's not including return yards.
Yeah, and that's not bad, but, in the past we've had kids that have been pounding it out there, and they've got a really good average. And that really and definitely helps you.
Falconer incomplete as coming down.
Yeah, that whole play was...
To break that play up with a solid hit was Sean Arabsky.
Yeah, it was not a slow play based on the fact that Falconer he took the snap to his right and he had to get the ball, and then it threw everything off, allowed the defenders to converge on that to make the play.
DeAndre O'Connor had a chance but got popped in the back by Arabsky and put that ball on the floor. 40 seconds to go here in the third quarter.
Game has really slowed down.
Has. Huskers offense has 6 consecutive punts. Falconer airs that over Keegan Vicklin's head. And we're looking at the 7th consecutive punt. Yeah, Danny Harris had that big kickoff return that put the ball at the Raider 20-yard line. And that was about 3 minutes to go in the second quarter.
Right.
And they scored a touchdown to take a lead, did the Huskers. Since then, this will be the 7th consecutive punt for their offense.
Well, that's what the Raiders want them to do. Obviously, they're going to hold them and put them into a punting situation, again, to try to get the ball into number 4's hands. But it's again, one of those things that don't get too complacent, because the touchdown gets these guys right back in this game. You don't want to get yourself in a position where you start to figure, okay, we got this all set up now. There's a block punt.
There's a block punt. It was that Paisley that got a hand on it.
Paisley blocked it.
He's going to scoop it up as well and return it. He's still going. Rugby scrum to the goal line. Touchdown Raiders. That was like a rugby play by the end of it.
That was interesting. That was very smart on Paisley's part to do that.
They scrum Josh Paisley over the end line, a block punt for a touchdown, and the Raiders extend their lead.
Yeah, it's not often you see the guy that blocks the punt actually getting an opportunity to pick it up,
no,
let alone score. Usually somebody else picks it up. That was a good play by Paisley.
Blocked it, picked it up, and scrummed his way into the end zone. I use that rugby term because it's the most effective way to describe what we just saw, really.
He had a lot of help come and start pushing.
He just would not go down.
And as long as his feet are still moving, they're not going to call them on a tandem buck on that. So
right.
He was able to do that. Let's get a little bit of help.
So it'll be 35-20 for the Raiders.
And the third quarter.
Final play of the third quarter.
And you got that important game between the Rebels and the Rams this afternoon. And I'm curious to find out how the Rams respond to the coaching change.
So this is something, and we said we'd talk about this later, so I mean, we can get into this here, Paul. The end of the season, these final 3 weeks, you've got the battle at the top. The Sun with a 1-point lead over the Rebels, and they will play in Week 10 head-to-head down in Langford. Then you've got the battle for third place. You've got Langley with a 1-point lead over the Raiders, and they will play in Week 10 here in Nanaimo. In between then, what can we expect? Well, the Rams play at home against the Rebels, then they play the Sun and the Raiders over the last 3 weeks, a very difficult schedule. The Sun play the Broncos, the Rams, and then the Rebels. The Rebels play the Rams today, the Huskers, and then the Sun. So the way that it sort of stacks up, and if things happen the way that we expect them to, and this is speaking from, again, expectation, and anything could happen in between, but what I think you're going to look at is the Sun winning against the Broncos and the Rams, and they'll go in to play the Rebels. You'll probably have the Rebels winning against the Rams and Huskers, if it plays out as it should.
Yeah.
And then that'll be a showdown for first place in Week 10 in West Shore.
Yeah.
And then again, what you should have is the Rams probably losing 2 and probably coming in here to play the Raiders with a record of 4-5. The Raiders should win here today. They should beat the Broncos, and then they're going to come back against the Rams also with 5 wins, right? So that's kind of and then that would mean that the Rams would need to win that game. They would finish tied with 5 wins if the Rams won that game, but because the Raiders beat the Rams by 7, the Rams would need to win by 8 to earn third place.
But then also the Raiders have that tie in there.
Right.
So that'll change a lot of things.
Right, for sure. So that throws another wrench into things. So I mean, you're looking at the Raiders being 5-3-1, which I guess would give them 11 points, right? Yeah, you're right. So I guess that tie actually gives the Raiders.
That should give them third place.
Right. You're right. Actually, your math more accurate than mine. So if the Raiders win here and win next week, and the Rams aren't able to pick up any points over the next 2 weeks, I guess they would not have a chance going into Week 10 to earn third place, would they?
If your scenario
yes,
works out,
that's
yeah,
right.
for sure.
Because Langley would only be able to get to 10 points, and the Raiders would then have 11.
Yeah.
Okay, so there we go. So, I mean, it's really interesting because then you say that battle for first place is as much of anything a battle not to play the Raiders in the playoffs. And that's a conversation I've heard going around in the BCFC as well, is you don't really want to play this Raiders team. I know they haven't beaten any of the top dogs this year, but they seem to be perhaps the more dangerous team than the Rams. I don't know. Is that what you're maybe feeling?
I guess so. I'm kind of puzzled at the Rams a little bit. You know, they're always a good football team, and they're a good football team this year, but they're missing something. and they don't seem as dangerous. I think that's the only thing I can say is, you know, they got with Johnson there and Nathan Lund, guys like that, but they haven't really said we can do this and can do that. Raiders can do that, and they've proven they can do that. But I think playoff time, everybody's mentality changes. Coach's mentality changes. It's a one game. You win, you move on. You lose, you're done. And I think will be the biggest difference in what team and what coaches can motivate their teams. The importance of playing a scripted football game, because it has to be scripted. In playoff time, it's hard to freewheel because there is no tomorrow. Yeah. Yeah, I'll have a better feel and opinion probably after I find out what happens today between the Rebels and the Rams.
For sure, that'll be telling. That'll be telling. And I haven't seen the Rams yet this year because obviously I call the games here in Nanaimo. I wasn't there when the Raiders went over in Week 1, but two, they're going to be completely different football teams. I mean, you play in Week 1 and then in Week 10, the Raiders beat the Rams on the road in Week 1, but who knows what to expect. They're going to have a new head coach for a couple of weeks by the time they get here, Will Langley. So it's a lot of things up in the air, really.
And there's a lot of things that also go on within the dynamics of the team. There's a coaching change, and they bring in, you know, Jeff Alamahota as the new head coach, but he's not the new head coach. He's been a head coach.
Been there forever, too, right?
He's been around the team a long time. But maybe there's players within that organization that are thinking to themselves, well, I didn't sign up to play for Coach Alamahota. I signed up to play for Coach Joseph.
Right.
So mentally, it might be something that they could concern themselves about. But I think, you know, Langley, like you say, these coaches, these guys have been around so long that they just look at it and they say, we're going to play, and we're playing Langley Rams football, and let's go.
Here's Bryson Mayo getting to the wide side of the field. He lost the ball. Huskers have it. 5th turnover of the game by the VI Raiders, their 3rd fumble. And the Huskers take back over.
Yeah, again, I was surprised that he cut back up. I would have used the field and stay wide. Yeah, you try to do a little bit too much sometimes, and you got the ball in an insecure spot, and it's knocked out.
So the Huskers take back over for their 15th drive of the game from their own 36-yard line here. In their last 3 drives, the Raiders' offense hasn't got on the field for 3 drives. And the Huskers' defense is actually taking a real blow here because there was that drive that the Huskers had that was prolonged by the fake punt. That was a long drive at the end of the 3rd quarter. They ended that drive by punting the ball away. And then the Raiders went quickly 2 and out. Then the Huskers came back on the field. They ended up having that block punt touchdown return by Josh Paisley. Then on this drive, they kicked the ball away, but then Mayo fumbles it back. So the Huskers have had 3 consecutive drives, and the Raiders' offense hasn't been on the field yet.
And that's where the defense has to make something happen now. Get the ball back, turnover.
So that I'm glad you were here, Paul, to give me some math lessons because, you know, I was sort of negating that tie. I wasn't adding it into the equation, but that counts for points in the standings. And so, you know, if the Raiders win their next 2 games and the Rams earn no points in their next 2 games, the Raiders will clinch 3rd place.
Yes.
Which is an interesting bit of finality that I hadn't sort of put on things. I didn't play that into the equation personally, so that provides a little more clarity, I guess, when you look at things.
Then on the flip side of it, for the Sun Rebels, if it plays out and they enter the game and the Sun haven't lost, the Rebels have the 1 loss, but the tie hurts Okanagan. Now the Rebels don't have to make up the point difference; they just have to win.
That's right, because although to be fair, that point difference is pretty minimal. What was that Week 1 score? I think 19-15 was it? The Sun beat the Rebels in Week 1 up in the Apple Bowl. So,
but at the end of the day, if you win by 1 point,
right,
and it counts to.
So that's true. The Rebels won't have to worry about the tiebreaker.
Oh yeah, and
they'll just have to win that game.
Just have to win the game, and everybody wants to play at home because 2 things happen: you get to sleep in your own bed, and your executive makes some money from the gate.
Sure, it's huge.
Another fake on a punt.
Fake punt. This one is not going to work.
It came up shy.
It's
they call
caught.
it a complete pass, but
Desmond Jeanson caught the ball, but he was not far enough to get the necessary yardage, so the fake punt no good. A turnover on downs.
This is where you might see the Raiders, because they've been sitting on the bench for quite a while, throw one up here to see if they can just put it back down and say, let's go. Let's go home.
Start at the Husker 44-yard line. I mean, the Raider offense hasn't been on the field for more than they've ran 2 plays in probably the last 7 minutes of game time. We have 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. Raiders up by 15 points. Play action. Screen pass, and it's dropped by Deshaun Dingwell. Put that ball on the carpet as Bryson Mayo and Desmond Jeanson are getting into things a little bit there. Jeanson's a rookie out of Winnipeg, Kildonan and East Collegiate grad, and he's had a really, really good season for the Huskers on defense. For a time was leading the league in defensive points. Ty Kitzman has just passed him, but Jeanson is second in the league in defensive points.
And he's a good athlete. He's a good cover guy.
31 total tackles, 2 interceptions. Both of those came in the same game earlier in the year. Fumble, ball's down, recovered by the Raiders, and they'll get credit for the recovery, even though they put it on the turf again. That, I guess, will be scored a sack
I would
on
think
Ybarra as he was stripped
so.
in the backfield.
That was being lazy. That really was. He didn't need to step up. He just throw the football, and he tried to make some with his legs.
That's the 5th time the Raiders have put the ball on the carpet today. They've lost it 3 of those 5 times.
And like you say, very uncharacteristic of them.
Well, I mean,
and you don't need that now.
It's not going to hurt them today, Paul.
No, not
They're
at all.
going to win this game, but you will not beat the Raiders, the Rebels, or the Sun, and probably the Rams if you turn the ball over 5 times.
Absolutely.
As they have done today. It's just not going to happen.
It's the same with the penalties. You know, there hasn't been a lot of penalties in this game.
They've taken points off the board, though.
Yes, they have. But those are the type of things that you're really going to, turnovers and penalties at some point come back to factor in a game that you're playing in. And
well, that's the other conversation that's going on surrounding the West Shore Rebels, because they are, I don't know what the exact average is, but it's pretty routine that they're up around 150 yards of penalties a game. I think it was 190 last week against the Raiders. I have that stat here. 190 yards the Rebels took in penalties last week. They've gone north of 200 a couple of times. I've talked to Charlie Cardalicchia about it, and he says the typical response is, oh, this play's way offside. The typical response is, we're going to run our team. You take penalties, you get run. That was how it was in my day. Doug Hawking loved that because he was our defensive coordinator when I played, and he used to make us do full field lunges, like 110 yards of lunges as punishment for penalties. But Charlie said he's not going to do that with his team because he said, look, I need these guys. I need their legs. Yeah. That's where they make their money for us, so to speak, on the field, right? So I need their legs. They need to be fresh. I can't run them till they puke, sort of thing. But he says we've had conversations where I just say to guys, look, do we want to be a championship team? Do we care about each other enough to put that stuff aside, not take selfish penalties, and focus on winning? But I don't know if that message is hitting home yet.
Well, I think it takes a nice catch.
That is a great catch there by Angle.
I think it comes back to experiencing the negative part of the penalties in a game.
Right, because it hasn't cost the Rebels yet.
Right, and until it costs them, it's not an issue. If you can take 200 yards in penalties and you still beat a team, it's like we don't care anymore.
It almost becomes part of the routine,
yes.
Right?
But if you were playing in a game that was an important game, say it was for first place.
Yeah.
And the team you're playing scores on a stupid penalty, that unnecessary penalty, and you lose, then you're going to look at how penalties are done completely differently.
Second down, that's a bad pass. Intercepted. Jeremy Chang, his second pick of the day. And that was a gimme, so to speak, for Noah Falconer as he just put that right in the hands of 29.
Yeah, again, that's one of those, just Lackadaisical pass, not enough zip on the ball.
Chang's second pick of the day.
But yeah, until the Rebels or any team that is up there in penalties experience the negative part of it, you don't change much.
Yeah.
And I know the Rebels going in the last week's game, I think they had 127 penalties in total throughout the year for 1,300 and some odd yards.
Wow.
And
That's
the
about
next closest team had 78 penalties for 600 yards.
Wow. Yeah.
But the Rebels are one of those teams that they play on the edge. They're going to push everything they can.
And that's what Charlie said that too. He said that's sort of what I want from my team, is to play that to the echo of the whistle type thing. And when the Raiders were rolling through the league in the 2006 and 8 and 9, that was part of the routine,
and
a
lot of penalties.
That swagger, that intimidation. Yep. And it was, sort of that middle finger to the world. Hey,
yes.
We can do what we want. You can't stop us.
And I think, again, you can experience in the negative part of too many penalties or by losing a game. But when you got a good football team, you just kind of brush that off. And it's one of those things that we're not going to change our style of play. Because I know when I coached, I would get angry with guys that they would rough the kicker, that type of thing. But you don't want to take the edge off of them where they're going to stop playing based on that. I don't want to rough this guy or that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a balance you got to try to find, but it's also a balance that you have to look at the big picture too. Is that player actually hurting you rather than helping you? Because there are guys in the league that take too many holding penalties or they take too many roughing penalties, and it's the same guys. It's not just everybody doing it. And so once you learn who those guys are, and if you can control them, then you're going to have some, and continue to play how you want to play, then you do okay. And a lot of the stuff, too, when you take a lot of penalties, what happens in the change room amongst the players will dictate how many penalties are going to happen in the next game, because guys don't like to lose because of something like that.
Right. Well, it becomes a selfish thing, right? If a player is selfishly costing you, and then you would hope that the veteran leadership of your team would address that.
Yes.
And I've seen that happen before as well. As Ibarra goes for a run for his life really in the backfield there and throws an incomplete pass. Brings up 2nd and 10 from the Husker 24-yard line. 8 minutes to go, fourth quarter. Raiders 35, Huskers 20.
Yeah. And I also think that sometimes the penalty, the number of penalties is kind of skewed based on the fact that the officials are really watching the game closely now from a standpoint of we don't want anybody to get hurt.
Right.
There might be some things that they let go, but now they're calling them a little bit closer. And again, it's a safety thing. But the ones that I kind of raise my eyebrow to is when you see all these penalties that happen when the ball's not in play. You can effort penalties, a clip or something like that. Those things happen because you're just not out of position, but you're trying. But some of the ones when the ball's not in play,
objectionable conducts,
those are the ones that
those are killers.
Yeah, they just really hurt.
The one that I notice a lot as James Parker's going to come on here for his 4th field goal attempt of the day is the hits away from the ball, because that didn't used to be a thing when I was playing. That was encouraged. That was you watch those plays in film over and over again, because when you would clean up a guy with an ear hole way away from the play, this kick is blocked here by the Huskers. So no good. As getting through into the backfield was Josh Robinson. He's already got a pick 6, now a blocked kick.
There you go.
For Josh Robertson, who's having a great game. And there, you said it, Paul. Not giving up.
Coach Breach's got to be really proud of these kids today.
So does that count as a missed field goal?
That was just a block.
So it doesn't hurt Parker's
I don't think
percentage.
So. I'm not sure how they do that. I think it's just a block kick. So it wouldn't since the kick didn't go wide.
Right.
He didn't get off. So it's not even a field goal.
Josh Robinson is having a great game. He's got a pick 6, 93 yards. He's got a blocked field goal. The Huskers will take over on their own 20 here. They have not advanced out of their own end of the field this half, Paul.
Yeah, they have. I don't think they've been over their own 35.
Falconer floats one here, incomplete.
Yeah, he's just not getting time right now to. Quinton was right in his face there, and he didn't have really time to put some zip on that ball. But again, that's his throwing motion too. Is he's got that long loping
Yeah,
passing arm that puts
the
the
ball
in
does
the
not
air.
come out with much conviction.
No,
It shocks me to see, really, from a third-year guy.
I think he's
You
one of
just
those guys
expect that progression.
Yes, but I think also too, a lot of times you get a guy that's successful throwing the football. You don't want to change too much.
Right.
And so
Yeah, how do you, I mean, he had 2,500 yards and
yeah.
19 touchdowns last year. You don't want to coach that up too much. Although he did throw, I think it was 16 interceptions. This pass incomplete as Falconer is tossed to the ground. Quick 2-and-out.
Yeah, but going back to that, the away from the play, that's one of the areas that football wanted to clean up because guys were getting hurt and guys were getting ear-holed that wouldn't see it coming. Now, yeah, when I was coaching, we used to use the term, get the pow watchers.
For sure.
Before the whistle blows.
So, yeah, back to my point on that. And now you can't do that.
No.
If a guy isn't directly involved in the play, you can't just go and clean him up.
Yeah.
And like I said, that was like a badge of honor when I played. As an offensive lineman, let's be honest, Paul, I wasn't getting 30 yards downfield. But I was peeling back and looking for guys. We used to call them butterflies, guys who weren't paying attention. They were just floating around out there. You take that guy's head off, and you would get accolades for doing that type of thing.
Yes.
And now, no, you can't do that at all. And that's one, the hits to the head, that kind of thing, for sure. Get that out of the game. I get that. I respect that. But those ones, I don't agree with that. Because if you're within the white lines and the play is happening, you protect yourself at all times.
Well, yeah, I don't disagree with you on all that. But what we're going to see over as we move through the years, the kids coming up to play junior football are not going to be taught that. The coaches aren't going to be teaching it. So they're going to bring all that with them. And you'll see all this stuff slowly come out of junior football that people now complain about junior football about being too rough. And it'll be just a little bit more, I don't want to say tamer, but it'll be one of those games where you're not going to have guys pow watching. Nobody will be hit below the waist, that type of thing, and that's just how football is
Chop
evolving.
blocks too, right? I mean, that was another thing that we used to do a lot of, and you don't see much of that anymore.
No, and even junior football still maintains you can still chop block, but because kids that are playing it now
They
come
don't
out of the minors,
practice
they
it.
don't practice it, so they don't do it.
The Raiders,
Nice
as
try
that
there.
pass goes incomplete, I believe took a penalty on that punt attempt by the Huskers. So the Huskers got a free first down there because they were set to punt the ball away, but they got it back. And on that first down play, the pass goes incomplete, brings up 2nd and 10 from about the 35. Yeah, that's true. The chop block, too, is something you don't practice anymore. It's not part of the game, but because it's not as easy as you think. It's easy to look dumb trying to execute a chop block if you don't know what you're doing.
Yes.
Because then you're just rolling on the ground, right? But, man, that was a really effective play for me. I used to use that a lot.
Yeah, and also you don't see linemen or lead blockers cutting guys downfield like they used to.
Receivers used to live on the chop block because it was a way to avoid that up-high contact.
And it's still allowed. It's just that because
really,
these players
aren't
taught it at practice when they were the younger and they get up here, they're not going to do it because they don't want to have it done to them.
Right.
And they don't understand it.
That's true, and I think of a guy, as you see Bryson Mayo on the screen there, he's been a little quieter today than you would expect. There was a receiver by the name of Taylor Slott, who played for the Raiders, and he was a fantastic receiver. Went on to coach for a number of years as well for the Raiders, and he could chop block downfield like nobody I've ever seen. And he sprung Andrew Harris on so many runs with his extra blocks down the field, and that was a badge of honor that he wore, was making those kinds of plays, right? So it's funny to sort of discuss and see the evolution of the game, even over a period of, we're talking 10 years of how things have changed. And we're going to see another fake punt here from the Huskers. They try a lead block sweep, and Vickland is buried.
That was one of the best defensive plays I've seen all year, the way Paisley strung that out, had his hands in front of him, stayed on the outside hip of the blockers, and just pushed them to the sideline and make the tackle.
Technical.
Very, very technical play. I hope Coach Hawkins shows that in film because that was just a tremendous play.
Second turnover on downs of the game from the Huskers, and you can't blame them. trying to go for it here. They're down by 15 with 4:40 left to go in this one.
Got a timeout here for something.
Bob Reist is asking Chris Short, the referee, to come over for a conversation. The clock actually turned off a second ago there. Now they've had to put it back on, so I think they're correcting the time.
Okay. It's hard to see that clock, man. That sun out here just...
Yeah, shades it. Or the sun sort of blinds the clock.
Yeah, the other thing, like when the BC champion gets into the prairies this year for the CJFL semifinal.
Yeah, there'll be a snap clock there too, will there not?
And that's something that our guys out here in BC aren't used to.
No.
So it's one of those things that, try to get everybody across the country to plug into those 20-second clocks.
Well, the part of the problem in the BCFC is the infrastructure.
Yes.
Because almost all of the prairie teams play in CFL stadiums.
Yeah.
So all that in big screens, for replays and the clocks, the end zone clocks that show the snap count, all that stuff is just there because the pros play there, right?
Yes.
So it's a much different world. It really is, Paul, and you know this better than most people would, but it's a completely different world what's happening in the Prairie Football Conference. Ybarra, end zone, Mayo, touchdown, Raiders. That was too easy as Ybarra just slung it up for his all-star caliber, dare I say all-Canadian caliber receiver.
Yeah, I agree with you
That's
there.
the second touchdown of the day for Bryson Mayo, his 11th total touchdown on the season.
Well, both DBs were caught looking at the quarterback, and Mayo just a little slow banana to the far corner.
You got to keep an eye on him.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, the Prairie football is completely different than BC football.
Everything about it.
Their approach to it. The players come through playing Canadian, and I'm not saying anything about negative about BC high school football, but when you're playing the game that you have to play, there's a two-point
conversion is good. What a catch there by, I believe that's an offensive lineman, or it's Kalen Botel, who's listed on the roster as a linebacker. The younger sibling of Jordan Botel, who was made famous for his time as being the lead blocker for Andrew Harris for a number of years in his career, and then ended up transitioning into being the Raiders feature back, then went on to play at Mount Allison as well. I was going to say that he's an ineligible receiver there, isn't he?
Well, he probably
didn't report, right?
No, they just waved off the penalties. So.
Oh, okay, no flag.
I think it's just a natural thing to throw a flag and then they sort it out.
Okay, all right. So a 2-point conversion to make it 43-20.
But yeah, going back to that, I think when you're on the prairies, you're playing Canadian football all the way through high school. All the community football is Canadian football, and I think you have a little bit better understanding of it. And then the mentality on how they approach the game, that it's full speed. Let's play, and I mean, they're good at it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a hard thing to really quantify.
Yeah.
What the exact difference is. I mean, for sure the high school programs are a huge factor in that. There's a high kick, and Angle barely got to that before the Raiders did. The high school programs have a huge part to play in that. There's no doubt. But, I mean, you look at even the way that the recruiting happens. Even for Bob Reist, with his Winnipeg connection, there's a lot of kids from Manitoba on this Huskers team. The Raiders, for years, made a killing out of recruiting out of Regina. You can't go into Saskatoon. Sarge just sort of has that city blocked off with a wall. But the Raiders went in and made a killing on players they pulled out of Regina. Jordan Yance being at the top of the list, I would say, right? And then the amount of players that have played in BC from all over the prairies. We have to go out as BC teams and recruit their ass off. And, excuse my language, but that's the way it is. Whereas for the Hilltops, you look up and down their roster, I'll be shocked you find 3 kids that aren't from Saskatoon itself. And they're able to build Canadian Bowl caliber teams every year on homegrown talent.
Yes.
And I don't think there's a team in BC that could do that.
No. Oh, nice play.
What a pass. What a catch. Mariah's angle. Falconer put it on the money. Still going. He's going to score. Unbelievable play. Falconer to angle. 85 yards.
That was a nice pass. A just fingertip catch. And then finish it off with a straight arm at the end there. Nice play. But yeah, again, I'm not talking about anybody in particular or anything like that, but in BC we seem to burn bridges. We have a lot of junior football. To some is looked on like a beer league.
It used to be a lot more, for sure.
Oh yeah, but we've got high school teams that talk about sending their kids to Notre Dame and to Ohio State,
right,
and things like that, rather than promoting the junior football side of it.
Right.
And we have a disconnect there, and I'm not sure what the answers are. It's not everybody. But it's just like the overall view of junior football isn't where it should be in British Columbia.
Well, not within the province. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. But isn't it so strange that a kid from Winnipeg, like Andrew Harris, thinks that for him an alternate route to the CFL is to come to Vancouver Island and play junior football?
Yeah, I think.
But whereas a kid from, say, Mount Doug, maybe doesn't think that.
Yeah.
It's just such an odd thing to wrap your head around.
Well, I think as well, there's more football played on the prairies at the high school and community levels, and so there's going to be more kids that are available.
More competition.
Like Andrew, when I talked to Andrew, the Winnipeg Rifle didn't even recruit him.
Yeah.
So he get his opportunity out in BC to say, sure, I'll give that a try. But we still do, and we used to have guys come from the prairies as 18-year-olds right out of high school, and they would play in the BCFC, another block. Another
extra points.
Dexter, that's the second block today.
Dexter Shea in the backfield, so that'll be no good. Makes it 43-26 as the Huskers continue to have their best offensive day of the season.
But some of these kids would come out from the prairies, and they play 2 years, and then go back and play. We had a kid when I was coaching in Victoria. There was an O-lineman. He played for the Hilltops, came to Victoria, played 2 years, went back to Hilltops, won a Canadian championship, and then came back here for his final year. So it was like we were like a training ground, and then those guys would go home. But we don't have that family feel through all of football in British Columbia. There's a disconnect somewhere where we're not allowing or encouraging the kids, I guess is the best term, to start. When you're a little guy, you're going to work your way through to play for the BC Lions. But as junior football, we're a part of that step as well.
Sure.
And somewhere along the line, that step's been taken out for some of them. Not everybody, but for some of them. And again, I think it's an encouragement from the coaches at high school that do have players that can play down south, but there's not a lot.
Yeah.
And the thing that I find is kind of discouraging is when you hear about these guys that don't make it down south, they don't even play anymore. They don't come out to junior football or just get on with their lives. And
it's been eye-opening for me this year to talk to the players as I do with the I do the player spotlights at bcfootballconference.com, and I talked to a guy like Deshaun Greenaway for the Rebels, and he went down south, spent some time in the NCAA programs, and he didn't speak of the BCFC as a league that he always dreamt of playing in, but he spoke of it as a place where he could go, get some game film, put up some numbers against good competition, and then hopefully use that to springboard to the next level. And that, again, I think is speaking to the value of this league.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
So
absolutely.
The Huskers will get a chance to retry this extra point, and this time Harris puts it through. So it's 43-27 after all. It's an interesting conversation anyways, and overall I think the subject we're really hitting on here is the parity or lack thereof between the three CJFL conferences.
Yes.
The OFC is doing their own thing. They're just back into the league. I don't know that they this year will compete. They certainly haven't in the past on a national level. They're just not there.
Yeah, well,
and we can call a spade a spade.
Yeah, and it's going to show tonight because Hamilton's playing the Wildcats.
Right.
And the Wildcats haven't won a game yet. Hamilton's one of the better teams.
Hamilton is 3-2 out in the OFC, and you're right. The Wildcats are 0-5, and my money is on the Wildcats. And of course, they're the home team. That's a tough trip. And the other one will be London in Calgary, and London is 4-1, and Calgary is 1-4. That'll be very telling.
Very, very telling.
Because Calgary's coming off their coach resigning 2 weeks ago. They're 1-4. They're playing a team that's 4-1, second place in that Ontario Conference.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't like their chances going into Calgary. You know what I mean? So it's so weird how the leagues sort of balance out, and then you've got the Prairies who just dominate. It's a different world. It's a different brand of football, and for a million different reasons. And it's funny because I was talking to Bob Reese, of course, who coached with the Rifles for a number of years, familiar with the Prairies. And one thing he was griping about, you could see this as minor, but from a coaching perspective it is not, as the Huskers try to go onside here, and Matt Hill makes a nice recovery. He was complaining about the game film quality. He said the game film quality in BC is horrible. There's no end zone cut, which would be a view of the field from the end zone. The plays are out of sequence. The quality's terrible. I can't do anything with it. And he says, what we get in the Prairies is pro-quality game film. And I've seen it. And this used to blow our minds, Paul, when I was playing. And we would move on to the interconference play in the Intergold and the Canadian Bowl level. And we'd get film from the Prairies, and we'd go, holy cow, what is this stuff? This is good. Because we're used to watching this fuzzy, blurry BC game film, if we ever did at all even.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And that's one part of it, that you may think that's an inconsequential part of the equation, but it's not.
Oh, it's huge. It's a very important part, because when you look at end zone film especially, usually the close line play, and all film, if the standard of the film goes up, it's a teacher for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're going to get better because
well,
they can now
what you do
see
is
what they do.
You don't learn how to break down film properly when you're watching bad game film. As my cameraman Doug here right now is cursing at me, because Doug, your game film is the best in the league. They're not talking about yours. But if you don't learn how to break down game film properly at this level, that hurts you when you go to the next level. And I was in that boat when I graduated and went to SFU, and they started breaking down the game film at that level. I was like, it's like they were speaking a different language, because I had never really broken down game film in that way.
Yes.
As Xander Bailey carries for a first down. We're inside 2.5 minutes to go in this fourth quarter. The Raiders leading 43-27. So these are just all these little parts of the equation. Playing with a real snap clock, having proper professional game film, all these different pieces of the equation. They may seem inconsequential. They all add up to the Prairies probably continuing to dominate junior football.
Well, there's always going to be a year or two where you really feel you have a chance. But but going back to the film, it is so important. Everything we do in junior football, in all football, is we're trying to teach players to get better.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to be a better football player. You're going to be a better person. You're going to move on in life. You're going to do some good things. So those are the type of things that you get a
jump ball for Mayo, and he got it.
Nice catch.
Mayo just went up and elevated over top of Jordan Ferry and pulled that in. And with that grab and the touchdown pass on the last drive, Mayo's probably near 100 yards on the day. And I said, he's been a little quiet today, but he's going to end up with a pretty nice stat line by the end of this one.
Oh, yeah, well, good athletes make things happen, and he's starting to make it happen. But he's also has some good passes to catch, too. Some of his better passes from Jamie have found his hands. But, yeah, if he can get good film, everything else we do, but it's getting everybody on the same page to say, what do we really want to do? And if you can get everybody that's in the room to agree that this is the type of film we want, this is how we're going to structure everything to be positive, and we're going to move forward, and then take the Prairies out of the equation, decide what the BC wants to do,
right,
and then say, okay, how do we compete against them?
Right.
What's the extra little things we got to do to compete that way?
I mean, there's so many layers too, and the other one that I actually laughed really, I saw on Twitter, the Hilltops tweeted a picture of their new clubhouse, where their dressing room, and they said, our new clubhouse, thanks to a $100,000 private donation. And I laughed, and I said, the Raiders have to, as an example, and every junior team's in the same scenario, they have to hold beer and burger fundraisers just to pull in, $2,000 or $3,000, and that's needed for just operations, and that's the reality that junior teams in this province are facing every day. Unless you have some sort of funding from somewhere, you are constantly in the struggle just to fund operations, let alone having a $100,000 donation to build a likely world-class clubhouse for your team. And the Hilltops have a brand new field as well there to play in the Gordie Howe Ball, the SMS field, right? So And whereas we're talking about the shortcomings of the infrastructure here in Nanaimo, right? So it's just really interesting to look at all the different layers and the different playing fields that everyone's playing on.
But you got to remember, the Hilltop's been around since about as long as this league's been going.
Right.
I think 47 was their first year.
Right.
But they understand how to embrace the alumni, how to embrace the community. And I think some of us in BC, we burn some bridges. We get angry with a team, and you burn a bridge, and you create those disconnects. If we can step back and say, okay, what do we want to do? We want a big field. Let's go make a better field. So how are we going to make that field? But the first thing, you got to get alumni involved. But if you disconnect with the alumni and you don't have anybody dedicated to deal with that, then it's going to be very, very difficult. But and it's longevity as well. The longer your team has been around, obviously there's going to be thousands of guys that came through the plate for you. That some are going to be wealthy, some will just come out and be on the chain gang.
That's right.
To come back and put back into it.
That's a great point, Paul, for sure. And I know the Sun, I feel like, do a good job of that. Tying in their alumni. I feel like the Rebels and the amount of upheaval in their organization in the last decade has made that challenging. And all the, you think of Payless and all the different incarnations down there, that makes that lineage a little challenging to link. I know for a fact, I can speak for it, the Raiders have not done a good job of keeping that sort of, at least an official sort of connection to the alumni, and I think that obviously had its challenges when Matt Blocker left, because he was the tie there in a lot of ways, and that his departure from the island maybe wasn't as smooth as it could have been on a lot of different levels. So that put you know what I mean. But it's just, that's an interesting point you bring up, and it's a great one, because say one of your alumni wins the lottery, wouldn't you like to be able to rely on them to maybe drop a
and you don't want him thinking. You want the alumni to be part of it, either as paying customers to come back to the game, or just to be part of the brotherhood that they left.
Yeah.
And some of them, talking to some of the guys in Victoria, when I coached Payless, we tried to get an alumni going, but because the name changed to the Sharks and then it changed to the Rebels, they didn't understand the Sharks or the Rebels.
Right.
And because the Rebels are the youngest, they didn't like them.
Right.
So it was hard to get those groups all together to say, okay, it's all about us as Victoria. It's not the Rebels, Sharks, and Payless or Hornets or whoever. But if you can get that part of it together, then you get those guys, because everybody's got somebody around the league or on a team that is gung-ho, always a guy, full of everything. And says, let's do this, let's do that. That guy will come back and start to do this and that and take care of the alumni. But it's a tough road to hoe. Football is a very expensive sport, and you're talking we need 10,000, but maybe if we can get 10,000 alumni coming out with $1 each instead of looking one guy for 10 grand. There's lots of ways to look at it, but again, it's one of those things that there's a
Ibarra taken down in the backfield.
But at the end of the day, it's still going to boil down to there's a few workers out there that dedicate their lives to junior football, and there's going to be people that come and go, and you just have to try to get the come and goers to come back and look at it and say, I want to get back involved.
Yeah.
My family's older now, I can do that, or my job's allowing me to do that.
Interesting discussion for sure, and I mean, ultimately for me, it just leads back to that main point of how does the BCFC and as a league, how do they become? I think James Parker just pulled that kick.
Yeah, he missed it. Yeah,
he did too. Paul, I think this is our fault, isn't it?
We jinxed him.
We jinxed this poor kid. He came into this game 14 of 15 for kicks, or excuse me, 13 for 14 on the season. And today he is now 2 of 5, and one of them was blocked. So it's a tough day for James Parker for sure.
I think it's been a tough day all around for the Raiders as far as how things were supposed to go that didn't go. And
so they get a single point, 44-27 the score, minute 42 to go here. And we've been talking so much about the other conferences, I might as well update everyone on that as well. Standings in the Prairies, Edmonton Huskies, 5-0. Before you get too excited about that, the Huskies haven't played the Hilltops.
That's correct.
And their final 3 games are Regina, Winnipeg, Saskatoon. They could finish the season 5-3, very realistically. But they're 5-0 right now.
Yeah.
Hilltops are 4-1. They lost to the Thunder in week 4. Caught a lot of people off guard. Regina 4-1 with that big win over the Hilltops as Vicklin pulls in a pass and has a first down here. Winnipeg 3-2. Calgary 1-4. The Wildcats 0-5. This weekend, Hamilton visiting the Wildcats. London from Ontario in Calgary. Regina visiting the Huskies. That'll be an interesting one to watch. And Winnipeg in Saskatoon, another really interesting matchup. In Ontario, you've got Windsor at 5-1, and their only loss, I believe, was to the Hilltops. Is that the Fratman?
Huskies.
Was it the Huskies? Yeah. London is 4-1. Hamilton 3-2. Ottawa 2-4. Niagara and Greater Toronto Area 0-5 to each. And the only OFC head-to-head matchup this weekend is Niagara visiting the Greater Toronto Area on Sunday.
Oh, one of them will win.
Yeah, one of them will get a victory, no doubt, unless they tie.
That's true, yeah.
And that's, I mean...
And one of them will be in the playoffs. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
No, those two, yeah.
I'm thinking different league.
Those two at the bottom. 1st and 15 here for Falconer.
But that just, it goes to show you that from a, I guess if you can look at a parity or use that term, this should be intercepted. Oh. You've got 2 teams in each conference that are running away with it, 2 in the middle that are battling it out, and 2 in the bottom that are out of it.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's the same for all 3 leagues.
All 3 leagues, and it's been like that forever.
Yeah, that is very true. The top 10, these CJFL power rankings, these are quite debatable and often are debated. I don't know.
Idea.
I guess so, right? I don't know entirely what the formula is that goes into it. But this is put together by the CJFL, the powers that be. Edmonton Huskies are the power ranking. They remain in number 1 from last week at 5-0. The Sun are second, 6-0-1, where they were last week. The Hilltops remain third with a 4-1 record. Regina 4th, West Shore, Windsor, Winnipeg. The VI Raiders come in at 8th. The Langley Rams at 9th. They're up from 10, and the London Beefeaters at 10, down from 9. So I don't know if you can put any OFC teams in there, to be honest. Just from my experience of watching Ontario football that I've ever seen, I've never seen an Ontario team that could beat one of the top 3 BC teams on any given season, in my experience.
No, I don't disagree with you. I think it's mainly based on the fact that you're involving all 3 conferences based on real standings.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean, Windsor's 5-1. They're 5-1.
Yep.
They're doing it against the competition that's put in front of them. So.
Well, that's it. It doesn't it's kind of like you say, well, we're playing the 0-7 Huskers, but they're still in the league.
Right.
You're not playing the 0-7 Huskers that are a Bantam team coming here.
Right.
They're a junior team.
Right.
So you beat them, you get your 2 points, you move on, and it's based on the same thing. Is that Windsor has a good football team, but also recognizing that, no, they also got beat by some pretty good teams.
Right.
And can they compete against them? Because in the old days, it used to be the standings would reflect it if the Sun would be in first place under the old standings because they got 13 points.
They have more points, yeah.
And then you'd look at the next team, and they would be 2 and working it down like that.
I mean, probably if I was going to rework that, and again, I haven't seen any of the Prairie teams play this year, but I would probably put the Hilltops at the top of the pile. I would rank the Hilltops as the best team until they lose the Canadian Bowl game.
Yeah,
that's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Tom Sargent and his crew have earned that right. What are they, 19 Canadian Bowls now, or last year was
3 in a row? They're in it this year.
I mean,
no team's ever won 4, and they stand a real good chance this year.
Well, and the BC team is going to have to go and win in the Prairies this year.
Yes.
And the last time that happened, if I'm not mistaken, was 2008, when Andrew Harris ran for over 350 yards against the Hilltops, and in all honesty, single-handedly won and stole a game that his team did not deserve to win.
Correct.
It really.
Yep.
I was there. I called
Yep.
that game that day, and Andrew Harris stole that game. So, and Tom Sargent said so, and I'm in the paper, and his quote was basically, we were beat by the kid, and what do you do? And so that is going to be a very difficult route to the Canadian Bowl for a BC team for sure.
Because there's only been, it was 2008, and prior to that was 1950.
Is that right?
The last time BC teams won in
the
Saskatchewan or Alberta.
Right. So, for me, the Hilltops are the best team in Canada until they're proven otherwise.
Yeah.
And the fact that that conference gets to host the road to the Canadian Bowl, and then the winner gets to go over to Ontario.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's, until proven otherwise, that's going to be a pretty gimme game for whoever comes out of it.
Absolutely.
Right?
Ontario has to prove themselves, and so far they haven't.
So, for me, you put the Hilltops number 1. You could flip a coin between the Huskies and the Sun then for 2, because the Huskies haven't beaten one of the top dogs in the Prairies yet this year.
Correct, yeah.
And the Sun haven't either. But the Sun have shown to me a level of football that, just based on the eye test and my knowledge of football, they're a team that could challenge a Prairie team. Just on the makeup of their defense, that front seven, the way they defend the run. You got Sean Robbins and Eli Haynes, Connor Richard in there. They appear to me as a defense, at least, that could challenge a Prairie team.
Okay.
Whether their offense can do it or not, who knows? And so that's where I would see that. And then from there, honestly, it's a bit of a crapshoot.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, West Shore, their offense is dynamic, but are they well coached enough and disciplined enough? I don't know. I think they get exposed at the Prairie level, to be honest. In that way, Regina beat the Hilltops, so they have to be in the conversation. Yeah. So, from there you can argue all day.
I know when I look at it, I try to say, okay, how would this team really do against a Prairie team? Because, ideally you could say we take the top 5 Prairie teams, even Calgary at 1 and 4, they might be in second place in BC.
Sure, absolutely.
So maybe they're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then the 10th team is the Wildcats, who are over,
right?
Because the Prairies is so much better.
Yeah.
But it's also, you got to look at like I said, you got to look at the big picture of what's. Ooh, that was a nice one.
Should have been intercepted, but
I think you got to look at allowing Windsor, for example, where they number 6, that when they play their game tonight or tomorrow, and the pre-lead into it in the paper, the number 6 team in the country.
Yeah.
Maybe puts 100 more people in the stands.
Sure.
You never know.
And again, like you said, this is a discussion point. This is what it's there for.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, yeah, and when you look at, it's any poll, you look at NCAA polls, you can all go, it's Ohio State number 1 or Alabama number 1, really?
Yeah.
They haven't played these guys yet,
right.
And
I know the Raiders, as an organization, always used to be very upset because they would never, even in their heyday, would never be even really in the top 3 in the national rankings. And they would, always see that as a slight, and you just kind of have to.
Yeah.
It is what it is, and you move on from it. But it's an interesting topic to discuss for sure, and I can't wait to move into the playoff season. October is the best time of year for me. When you get into playoff football, it's too bad as a broadcaster I won't get to be a part of the interconference schedule anyways. I was really excited last year to get a chance to call that Canadian Bowl in West Shore, and it was a great game, and I think the Rebels had a chance to win that game for most of it, and a couple of mistakes, and it just got away from them. There was a kickoff return touchdown that really, I think, turned that whole game.
Yes.
But, man, you just have to marvel at what they've done in Saskatoon there, and what Tom Sargent does. This passes in and out of the hands of Tristan Meir.
Well, it's a factory of football.
Yeah.
The kids and players want to play for them. Because being successful, obviously, that helps recruit players. But kids just.
But they don't. They don't recruit, Paul.
No,
though.
But they just dream. I'm going to play for the Hilltops.
Yeah.
I know I was there when I was president of the league. I would go back to the playoff games, and one time I was in the change room, and they had their all cubicles set up with the players. I think their names were up there, but there were 5 sets of pads sitting out in the hallway. And I asked the guy that was showing me through the change room, and I said, what are these ones for? He says, these are the 5 guys that are new to the team, rookies at high school. And he says, they've got to earn a spot in here before we'll let them sit in there.
Wow.
And that type of mentality that a player will wait around.
Oh, well, Paul, it's quite routine to see players who have 2 or 3 Canadian Bowl rings right now who are first-year starters. for the Hilltops,
Yes.
right? I mean, they've won multiple Canadian Bowls, and they don't even get to see the field.
Yes.
And then they come in, and now they're starting in their third year, but they already have all that experience, and it's just expected that they play at that level, right? So it's just an incredible thing, and it's something to marvel at. And I have just so much respect for Tom Sargent, and I know some people don't always like the Sarge, because when you win a lot, people don't like that, but as finally
Intercepted.
Tristan Muir is going to get that interception that he's been eluding him on this drive, as he had 2 chances.
And there's your
And
ball.
gets the pick, and that'll do it. As the Vancouver Island Raiders pick up the victory, 44-27. The final score, so I guess a bit of a different script than we probably would have predicted, but the end result, what we expected. The Raiders improved their record to 4-3-1. The Valley Huskers fall to 0-8, still searching for that victory that has eluded them now for almost 3 full seasons of football.
And I think a wake-up call a little bit for the Raiders.
Sure.
It just says to them, look, we got to prepare a little bit better. We got to be a little more focused when the game kicks off. But I think the Huskers have to take a lot out of this game, go home. They're going to be on the the ferry going home, a chance to put their feet up and talk about it. And they got to be really happy on what happened today as far as them being able to move the football, especially in the first half. And they scored some points. They scored the most points they have ever in the game.
Actually doubled their season high in points here today. So
you got to take a lot of credit for that.
I mean, this team was they were on the bus at 6 a.m. this morning.
Yes.
Bob Reese said, and had to get the ferry and come here in a place where, like you've said, they probably knew they were going to lose, but they came in and full respect to them. They played all day. And they didn't give up. And
there are some players that it could have been their very first time on a ferry as well.
Yeah, no doubt, eh? Yeah, the Winnipeg boys and some of the Prairie guys probably having their minds blown today, traveling over to, what I like to think is one of the most gorgeous places in the world, but I'm a little biased in that way for sure.
I'm not going to argue with that.
We're 2 island guys. So that's right. So the Raiders pick up the win, 44-27 here today. Lots of action still ahead of you on bcfctv.com. I suggest you flip right on over and pull up the game that is just starting in Langley. And the game of the week, the Rams hosting the Rebels, has implications all over the playoffs. And then later tonight, 6 o'clock start in Kamloops, the Okanagan Sun visiting the Broncos. The Raiders will probably burn this film, would be my guess. Just move on from this one. They will play the Kamloops Broncos on the road next week. And the Valley Huskers will play against the West Shore Rebels next week. Big thanks to everybody for tuning in today. Paul, final thoughts for you on this?
Junior football game, 2 teams that are polar opposites at this point in the season. And the visiting team came in and, put their hearts into it. And the home team just they struggled a little bit. But end result is still the end result. It doesn't matter. You can say, well, we struggled, whatever, but you still won.
Yeah, that's it. The points are in the bank. Big thanks to all of our contributors on the broadcast here today. I did catch up with Tristan Fournier, a defensive lineman from the Huskers, before the game. That interview is up at the BCFC Facebook page. You can go check that out right now. Doug Watson of MyGem Multimedia doing a fantastic job, as always, behind the camera. Such a treat to have Paul Short here today to chat and pontificate on some junior football thoughts out there. It's a pleasure, as always, Paul. I really appreciate you taking the time to join me.
Thanks, Tom.
We'll be back here in Nanaimo for myself in Week 10 as the Raiders play the Rams in what could be a showdown for third place, or it could be a meaningless game. Either way, it should be a lot of fun, and I hope you can join me there. Keep watching BCFC TV, powered by Remax. My name is Dominic Abassi. The Raiders 44-27 over the Huskers. Good night from Nanaimo.
Snoop on there? Was Snoop on there?
stand